Thank you. Yes, Bob. Thank you. So today, February 25th, 10 a.m., I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Self-Insurance Board Committee. Mr. Hyde, could you give us the invocation, please?
Heavenly Father, we thank you for your many blessings to us, and we thank you for another day that we look forward to. We pray that you would guide and direct the meeting today, that everything that's done and said will be within your will. We pray in thy name. Amen.
Amen. Then next item is the approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Agenda approved. Item C, we have recognition of the public. If anyone would like to come forward and speak. Seeing none, we move on to item D, approval of the minutes. We have before you October the 31st and January the 16th.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve. Mr. Hyde?
Do I have a second?
I did. Mr. Hyde.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Minutes approved. Report of the committee chairman. I want to thank everybody for coming today. I know that we didn't have quorum a couple of weeks ago. The meeting was canceled, and then we had weather, and the meeting was canceled, so I appreciate everybody adjusting their calendars to make today happen for us. And I don't have anything new to add to the items. The report of Mr. Finance Director.
Let's go ahead and hand out the financial statements.
I did.
Have you already handed them out? There should be a packet on your table that was passed out. It has balance sheet on the top. Eric, do you have a copy for it? Okay.
This one.
The first one is your health insurance. If you look at the top right, you've got about $20.9 million of cash as of the sixth period, which is the end of December. If you go over to the second page, you'll see there's about $6.9 million of revenue and about $6.3 million of expenses. So right now, your health insurance fund is getting tighter, but we're still in the positive, and I think it's going to get a little tighter between now and the end of the year. And that'll be a bigger discussion when we look at rates later in the agenda.
Can you,
Sorry for this blue packet here.
can you point us back to that second item and then tell us how tight you think it's, what tight means?
Well,
How
right
tight is
now,
tight?
anytime you do, we're on a plan year from July to June. So your health insurance, by and large, are slowly trending up, even with a controlled trend. So when we come up with an actuarial or a premium that's static during the whole fiscal year,
Can we get another one, Mr.
they're right here.
Commissioner Brown doesn't have one. Can we just hold it? Thank you.
Okay, let's start with that again. If you start thinking of why you start trending tighter during the year, if you get good estimates, what you would expect to see, you have a static premium all year and a slowly rising insurance rate. So at the beginning of the first year, you should have an excess if it's slowly trending up and you have a static plans, and at the end of the year, you're going to try to aim for a break even or slightly positive. Right now, the way I'm looking at, we're probably going to have a positive again. We do have some concerns, which Brittany and them are going to talk about on their report. We do have some that are approaching where we would have been for the reinsurance, but right now they've been paid through this too. Now your dental plan, a lot of those are rates that haven't changed significantly for years. So if you go to the fourth page back, and it looks like this, you've got about slightly under 1.5 million in there. If you go to the next page, and I'm just
Let
going
us
to read the
catch up,
numbers, just
Mr.
to read the
Lang.
numbers to you.
Sorry. I'm trying to catch up with you.
It's about the fourth
are
page
you on?
back.
Page 4.
It's about the fourth page back.
Does it have a number on it?
No, they're not numbered. These are the last minute to get the time read.
That's okay, I understand.
2, 3. It's a fourth page back.
Self-insurance dental,
Right. If you look on the right, the top number is about 1.5 million. Doing some rounding. That's the amount of cash you've got right now. You've got estimated runoffs probably somewhere between
I'm still on the wrong
23
page,
to
I'm sorry.
25. If you count 4 pages back.
It's actually about.
Oh, 4 back, not from the front, from the
Yeah,
back.
four from the front going toward the back. Yeah, four back from your front.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. You've got about, if you go to the right, you've got about $1.5 million of cash and somewhere between $25,000 worth of runoffs. So this plan's very healthy. You go to the next page and you look at the third column to the right at the bottom. That's how much revenue you brought in this year, a little over 252,000, almost 253. And then you just flip over to the next page and they should be pretty well lined up on the third column. You've got 220,000 some odd dollars, so you've got about a $50,000 surplus. That'll be a discussion we get to premiums too. This fund, by and large, they gave us an actuarial several years ago, and it's been overfunded for several years. So it's looking good, and the cost of being relatively flat. They've been going up because you got more participants, but if you talk to a lot of your dentists, they say these rates have been capitated for years. I've heard their complaints. So then your third one is your OJI. If you go back past that expense, it's the very next one, and it looks like this. If you go to the right, it's going to show you have $6,002,000. If you look at this one, it looks like we're doing really bad, but the payment for the general fund at that time, which is once a year, and the largest payment had not been made. So I'm just going to read the numbers to you. Once we brought that into the fund in the 1st of February, the cash balance is about $7.3 million with estimated runoffs of probably between 1.1 to 1.2. So the fund is healthy, but it doesn't have a large reserve, say like your health insurance. It would be nice to have a larger one. Looking at your revenue to expenditures, and I'm just going to read those numbers because we have updates since these. You have slightly under 2.3 million of revenues and a little over 1.2 of expenditures, which looks really good, but it's deceivingly good because that's during February, and the majority of your payments are all paid in July. So right now, what I'm estimating is we're going to have a small positive uptick, but not very large. It's kind of like last year; it was very small. But I'll go into more details when we discuss premiums, which is down later in your agenda. Does anybody have any questions? I know I went through it rather quickly, but I think Bob's and Brittany's report will probably mirror it pretty closely. So kind of talking about it twice. If somebody's got any questions, that's the end of my report.
Thank you. So the next item is report of the consultants.
So I think I gave several of these out. So this is the January report. All right. So here you go. I think I got one over there. I'm going to use that. Okay, so we look at this every month. So it's always looking back 1 month. Thanks. And so you can see that we were positive. I believe this was there's a RX rebate that hit this month, which always helps a lot in claims. So depending on the type of brands that are prescribed and used, sometimes that will shoot money back into the account, which I don't negate, but it is not how I would write a contract around how much rebates we get. But we need to note that you did get money back for those things. So for the month of January, the monthly change, so you were positive 354,056. But last month, if you'll remember, it was in the negative a little bit. And that happens month to month because things change. People have surgeries. Things that are more expensive happen in certain months. So that's just the life of the plan. It's a living thing. Same for dental. We were positive. We usually are, just like David said, we are usually just a little bit positive. It's usually just an exchange of money, which is pretty normal for a dental plan. That usually is how they are funded. It's a little closer. But we are still in the positive. The things that he did mention, so large losses. Let me show you that chunk first. So I start looking at them when they hit over $100,000. That's when we start tracking them. When you had reinsurance, your reinsurance policy was at $500,000. So that's really the number I'm looking for. Who goes over that amount? And so it hasn't happened yet. You do have a couple that are higher. You've got 2 that are over 250, one that's approaching 300. One of them we've known about. It's a recurring thing. Usually does not get to 5 by the end of the year. So July 1, when you get that July report, we'll zero these people out again because that's how reinsurance works. It's year to year. So you are still paying yourselves though for lack of a better term, premium for that for that reinsurance. So for this year, if we include the money you've paid in before, in years past, you're at 1.2. So that is something that we keep up with. I have Blue Cross send me a quote for stop loss fund, and that's the amount you all pay yourselves. So instead of paying them, you pay yourselves. So we're still okay. We do have obviously some larger cost claims that come through. Every plan has a spattering of them. Certain years it's much higher. It depends on that year and on the employee base. Lastly, this bottom right-hand square rectangle. So this actually goes really well with what David was talking about. So we have trended really well over many years now. You all have been pretty flat. Clinic costs are lower than they've been in the past. That's a good thing. But when we see you had a really rough year, that 21-22 year, that was normal for most. Coming out of COVID, a lot of things happened, and so it was expensive that year. We went down the next couple of years. This year we are trending up. So what is that figure? That's a PEPM, so per employee per month. So you will have employees join that have families. You'll have employees join who are just themselves covered. So I like to look at what does it cost on average for you to have an employee here per month for that plan. That's what that number shows. So you can see when it starts to go up, especially now that we're in January, because we're past the half point for your plan. I start actually leaning on that average as being pretty accurate. July, August, it's just not enough information for you to really make a decision. But yes, it is trending up. Though we are still, we're lower than the 21, that rough year. So we keep an eye on it. And are there any questions about this?
Do we know why? So why are we now trending up? Do we have a division of the health that's accelerating?
It is RX. That is the name of the game in pretty much every plan now. RX used to be maybe 13-14% of the plan, then it was 25% of the plan. It is well at 50% in almost every plan now, because people live longer on a specialty medication. It helps them live, and so that's the cost of it, which I'm sure you see in real life.
There's two things. There's the prescription and also your non-preferred plan, which is where your smokers or the people that aren't doing their wellness plan. It had a large uptick this year compared to your preferred. Your preferred, we're looking at 4% and 3%. Your non-preferred, which is a smaller portion, has a very large increase this year. So it's weighing the whole group up. So what Bob's been saying about the wellness plan is showing in our preferred, but your non-preferred is going.
Right.
So the question is, how do you want to handle that?
So it's more of the medications.
Well, there are two
Driving
things.
a lot of it.
Medications, period, because it's become a larger and larger chunk. While your large procedures and stuff, if anything's stagnant or maybe even slightly down, your prescription drugs is inordinately went up. That's one of the drivers. The number two, you've got two plans. You have a preferred and a non-preferred. Your preferred has lower deductibles, co-pays. That's where the people that are non-smokers that do this wellness plan, they're in there.
Yeah.
It only went up this year based on the actuaries, it's like 3 to 4%. Your non-preferred is for the smokers or the people that won't follow the wellness plan or have other issues. It's went up, it looks like about 22%.
Because they're aging.
That's not the reason they would be in there. Aging,
Oh.
it's the people that are not compliant with the wellness plan.
Right,
that
and it's
get
causing
affected.
more health issues.
And it's causing more health issues, and theirs is driving the whole group up, even though they're a smaller percent. And we'll see that back when we start looking at premiums. I've got the premiums.
So what is the compensatory? Their premiums are higher, correct?
No,
They're not?
their premiums are the same. Their deductibles and co-pays are higher. So you pay the same, but you get less coverage. So the only way to capitate part of the cost would be to increase co-pays and to increase deductibles. But we've got to be cautious because of our plans, the differences in them can be only so far.
And we can only go so high per legislation. I mean, also, if you're employees, it has to be affordable as well. So there's a lot of hands trying to balance a lot of different moving parts. One of the things for RX, because RX is expensive, you do have AS meds, and through the clinic, if folks would engage in that as well, they can get drugs at a much lower cost. That's one way that we're trying to drive more visits through the clinic. They have health coaching, they have preventive medication, preventive services. that's really the smartest way, because typically through a clinic, it's 40% less than if you go to Dr. Smith down the road.
That's right.
So, and that was a made-up name just for public knowledge. That was I'm sure there is one, but that's not who I'm not trying to attack anyone specifically. It's just, it is cheaper. That is an at-cost drug. That is it's the smart way. We need to continue engaging the clinic as much as possible.
Madam Chairman, just to interject a little history, I think you cannot say this too often. The reason that you all are able to do what you're doing is because you are what's called self-insured. And we really need to avoid the use of the word of insurance. My insurance went up, or my insurance paid for it. You don't have insurance. And it's because of that, claims are claims are claims. When we talk about the cost of the plan, it's not because it's averaged with a bunch of other groups or whatever within an insurance company with their profit margins and everything else. It's because your employees and dependents are spending those dollars at pharmacies and doctor's offices. That's reflected back in your report. There's nothing else in there. Those costs, expenses on your report are actual claims, pure claims. So that's why years ago, this is the history part, years ago, y'all decided in the self-funded plan to install a clinic, to emphasize wellness, and to not reward people who don't take care of themselves. I can't say that well, I just said it. But it's true. You know, an employee who lives a good lifestyle, eats correctly, tries to take care and maintain certain illnesses that are identified they have, that employee should be rewarded for that. And the one who just chooses to smoke and not take care of themselves, and we know science says that comes with a bag full of other things that causes them to be sick. So you can't reward that behavior. So when we set up the plan, we said, okay, to be fair, we're going to charge everybody the same thing because everybody kind of makes the same on scale. But on the benefit side, we will make that different so that those who choose not to do that will pay more, not in premium, but if they use it. So in other words, the only time they're penalized, the only time an employee who's on the non-preferred plan pays more is if they use the plan. If they'll stay well and not go and go to the clinic and stop doing some things maybe, then they could even qualify for the other plan. But so that's the way we set it up, and it's why it's working. Okay, and it's why, did you say 92, our PEPM is?
I did not say that.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Well, if you look at other plans, even the state plan, everybody else, if you look at what people are paying and what their benefits are and their deductibles, and you look at your plan, you don't see a significant difference. You've been able to maintain those benefits for your employees because of the structure. So that's why, as your consultants, we get nervous when we see something that we think or we've seen in another plan adversely affects it. So don't get mad at us when we tell you something like that, but we're just,
Makes sense.
it's like, and I'll say this again, we work for the plan. If the plan is not healthy, nobody's happy. So that's our first priority, is the plan.
Well, here with your graphic, it is starting to approach back what we had
Yeah.
under the Wuhan virus.
Right.
And that is a little concerning.
Mm-hmm.
It is, and a good portion, as Brittany mentioned, was the pharmacy. Between 22 and now, this is just becoming out of control, the pharmacy piece of this. And your state legislature has not helped you with that. In fact, the government should be giving you tax credits for having a clinic. I don't understand that. I think they should make it easier for you to keep people well. So we fight for that, and we tell people that we come in contact. So anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, it's very
but
interesting.
Redundancy,
You need to try to
and
address
it's important we remember that.
Can I just ask, along with, if I'm hearing correctly, if I'm an employee and I go to a walk in the door doc box, it's costing the plan more money than if I go to the clinic.
Yeah.
Do we have, I just want to make sure I'm clear.
Mhm.
So is there any more effort that we could push out to educate? Or is there any population of our employees that are not fully taking advantage of the clinic that we could educate or bring forward?
Some, but I can't force them to go. Everybody during orientation.
And
is
I'm
told
not
about it.
asking to,
I
yeah,
get it.
maybe, I understand during like their initial thing.
Yeah,
Is it
during-
worth like every 6 months, like saying, hey, remember the
Well,
clinic's
I send out
open? or-
notices every year because of our HRA event, and I send out information about our one-to-one clinic since they handle our HRAs. They also get all the additional information on what they can do at our clinics.
Do you do any
So-
marketing, like exciting, convincing, like, hey, go to the
They wouldn't
clinic
do
and
us,
maybe our
they-
plan can get cheaper? Little
No,
cheerleading
but
or
I do
anything?
mention that if they're on regular meds that they take regularly, that they can go there and ask and see if that's on their preferred plan, if there's something that they can get there.
Can we
like
target?
X-rays.
If
Can
you
we
wanna
target the
pay-
ones that are not using it? I mean,
That's
I
not-
don't want.
We've had one-to-one to do it before, but we have no way to do it or resources to start a advertising campaign.
Yeah.
But we have paid one-to-one to do it in the past, but it does cost us money. They send
Well,
them
if we could
out.
save money.
I think in the past it works some, but I don't know if it even recovers our dollars because most of your employees know. The problem we've got is on our plan, some of the generics you go at the pharmacy charges you 0 or 12 cents, so we have a hard time to get them to go down to the pharmacy for 12 cents. That's what we're running into. Your generics are so cheap at the pharmacy,
Okay.
the underlying amount that's being paid by Blue Cross, that it's hard to get them down there now.
I'm just asking if there's any room to try and,
We can get one-to-one to do it again, but I'm not sure it's really helped that much, and maybe she has a different perspective.
Yeah, I'll talk through some things
Okay.
during our presentation.
Thank you.
That might help.
I was just wondering.
Oh, that's the things we
Yeah,
mentioned.
no, that's. There was one other thing under the report of the consultant. So Amy had reached out to me before. You all had engaged another a broker to help with vision.
Yeah.
We've always done health and dental, and that was done external to us. And so Amy had requested that I put together a proposal to add vision in. And so it's coming on time anyway to renew our contract with you all, so Amy asked me to bring a proposal just to add that in and to increase the cost. So that I did bring it. I don't know what all you want me to go into. So if it's not under my purview, I'm not covered by my own insurance to give any consultative advice about vision or things like that. I don't want it to fall back on me. So I need to have it in contract.
Let me give you the history of vision. Okay, we had a vision plan where we paid $100 per employee. Affordable care came about, and we couldn't do it anymore because any dependent under 26 would have been unlimited. So we killed the plan. I brought forward from Blue Cross a vision plan. Nobody wanted it. Gallagher come by about 2 years later, and they came by and they sold us the same plan, basically. At the time, we were paying them, I believe, was it $5,000 a year? We were paying them $5,000 a year for it. Well, to get rid of
To clarify, $5,000 to cover everybody?
that was
or-
$5,000.
or to be
is
our consultant.
Their fee. Okay.
Their fee?
That was their
Okay,
fee.
Thank you.
Later, because we didn't have a broker for US Able, they become our broker for US Able and agreed to cover our questions for Section 125. So basically, Section 125, you have questions and stuff all the time. That's what they do. They dropped out the $5,000 for the consulting on vision, so they quit doing the consulting on vision because at the time we didn't have a lot of questions and a lot of issues. But now it seems like it's become an increasing issues with vision.
Well, we need to update our EOC to match how it's actually handled.
And they didn't do
But I
that
can't get
anyway.
anybody to update.
And that would be like what we did when we updated for our healthcare benefits.
Right.
So we still need that for vision. And that would be all the legal ramifications of what we have to provide and stuff.
I think it's more, on the EOC side, it's not so much needing to engage a lawyer or a legal group. I think it's more of what's the process? Because right now, I know this much about your vision plan, except what I see on a sheet. I don't know about the functionality. I don't know a lot of things about it. So
We
Do
need
you
to
have a
update the-
recommendation?
Yes, we need to update the plan document. As everything else, we got limited resources, so it's best for us to outsource this. And what's the quote on it right now, Brittany?
Oh, well, since it's just with the medical and dental, then it would go up to $1,000 a month instead of, you pay us $700 1,100, I think, a month now, so it'd go up to 1,000
Is it 6 or
to
7?
add it in.
7.
So it'd be 12 total.
So 3 times 12 is 3,600. So they're doing what the other group did for 5, so they're about 3,600.
Yeah.
And they don't really want to do the updates and stuff. Galler's kind of
Correct.
told us they're not interested in that, but because it's small. So really, our best bet is to outsource them to help us with writing and updating the plan. So that would be my recommendation to move forward.
I'll make a motion to move forward with getting a contract to add it on with our health and dental. And I'd entertain a second.
You get approved for me to go ahead and sign it, the contract when it's.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none? Yes,
Okay, that's part of the motion.
So this is just vision on
We're gonna add vision into that.
we're gonna,
if we have already.
the motion is we're adding vision in with our dental and medical contract. If you could, yeah.
Here's
Do you need anything more from legal from us, Mr. Lawyer? Do you need us to vote?
On this topic,
Yes.
No,
Do you need us
I'm
to say
good.
anything else from you?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm good.
now.
Thank you.
I came prepared. There it is, in
Thank
paper.
you.
I signed the back, so that's good. Let me know. Okay. That's all for me for now.
Let me tell you, Madam Chairman, what the one-to-one presentation, I think we discussed that one with you in the email. That's to discuss, they actually have a weight loss program that may be something you want to look at that may help us with claims and with the band.
Are y'all prepared to discuss that today? Excellent. You have the floor.
Thank you. Okay, so in your packet from us, on the second page, I just
Could you just give me a minute? Can you,
Yes.
oh, I have a ton of documents here.
Few
Can you
packets
just
in
show
front
me
of you.
which
That's
one?
the front of it.
Okay. If you could just give us all a minute.
You're fine.
I don't know that I have that one.
The one that says the 2025 proposal?
Yeah, I don't think I got.
Oh, it's right there.
Oh, there, thank you.
It's lost in the sea of things.
Yeah, I'm sorry. A lot of papers hit the table all at once.
All right, so if you flip to the second page, I just reached out 2024, and so talking about engagement, you actually have really good engagement in the clinic with your population. So 65% of your total population engages in the clinic, 81% of those being employees and 51% being dependents. So we could talk about some outreach to engage in dependents a little bit more, maybe spouses who aren't aware of the clinics or services that we provide. We could look at doing some mailers to the house in the way of a postcard or a magnet, things like that. And really, it would be relatively low cost. It would just be the printing of the materials and the mailing of it, so that it wouldn't cost a lot, but we could give you a quote on what that would look like. But also speaking just to 2024, you had 5,857 total visits, which was a 15% increase over last year. And then I listed out the visits by clinic, so you can see that Schaefer is our busiest clinic. We have lots of wellness visits, and then Ellis, or Portland, then Ellis being the next busiest.
Can I ask for just a clarification? Is this county or is this school also? Is this the
This is
combined?
just your numbers.
Just our numbers. I just want to clarify.
Yeah,
Thank
we'll
you.
only present your numbers. to
Thank you.
Yeah. 87 flu vaccines were provided to your employees and dependents through the clinic. We had 1,153 virtual visits completed. That's a 75% increase from last year, and that's largely attributed to the fact that we implemented text care. So we can do virtual video visits, but we also do a lot of visits via text now, and your employees really like that. So they can literally just text in and say, hey, I'm out of my medicine, I need to get this refilled. We can get it ready at the clinic, and they can stop by and pick it up. Or they can text and say, hey, I think I have strep. If we need them to run by the clinic and test, they can, but we can treat them virtually for lots of things. It's also another area that I would like to advertise. We can do like text blasts, promotion blasts out to the employees, which is good when we have their phone number. I don't know if you guys collect cell phone numbers through your benefits
I've
enrollment.
been trying to send them to you on the list that I sent everybody.
Okay, awesome, perfect. So we can text employees to let them know about the service and eligible dependents as well. So that's a campaign that we can do that really wouldn't cost anything. So we'll work on that. The one caveat or fear of that is sometimes when they get text messages that are like, hey, don't forget you have this service, they can hit stop, which opts them out of the texting, and they can't get back in unless they text start back. So then if they're sick and do try to text, they can't get back in if they opted out. So
That's
we
not
just,
good.
we just monitor that closely when we do outbound engagement strategies through text. We had 601 behavioral health specific visits last year, which was a 40% increase. Walk-ins are very well utilized in the clinic, so we have dedicated days and hours for walk-ins, 121% of utilization in walk-ins. Scheduled appointments less at 57%, but combined utilization of 64%. So
Why
again,
is the White House clinic so
So low.
poorly visited?
it's only a part-time clinic. Both White House and Westmoreland are only part-time clinics. They're not open 5 days a week just because there isn't great utilization at those clinics.
Even part-time, that kind of surprises me because Westmoreland, what is it, which is much smaller, is 328, and White House 36.
I would say for your population, it probably depends on where they live, what's closer to home for them. The Board of Education has a higher utilization of the White House clinic, so it's being utilized, just not as much by your
Okay,
population.
I was just curious.
That's a good question.
Which one of the clinics has the x-ray?
Schaefer.
Thank you.
I'm sorry,
That
no,
was-
just kidding, just kidding. Schaefer is our smallest clinic, but definitely our, well, I shouldn't say smallest, it's very small, but very well utilized by your population.
Schaefer's Roberts building.
All right, if we flip to the second page, this is just highlighting a couple of services because of recent discussions that I think might make sense for your population. One of those being the medication weight loss program. So essentially the way that works, and the Board of Education already opts into this with us, but there are criteria that patients have to meet to be a part of the program. They have to have a BMI over 30. They have to participate for 3 months leading up to meeting with a provider, with a health coach, to review nutrition. They have to exercise for 3 months and provide food and exercise logs. So there's some pretty significant skin in the game for the employees to be able to engage in this program and on the front end. And they also have to lose weight before we start them on medication. So again, this program is driven to lifestyle modifications. And all that we do, we try to promote lifestyle modifications. We don't want anybody to be on any medication long-term. You know, if it's a diabetic that we can reverse from lifestyle modifications, we want to do that, right? So same with this. The goal would not be to be on a weight loss medication forever, but to get you to the place you need to be so that you can sustain. So, again, quite a bit of skin in the game for the patients on the front end of the program, but then they would meet with a provider and determine what, if any, weight loss medication makes sense. And we try to start with the lower cost medications like enteramine, topiramate, all of those things that are lower cost versus the GLP-1s. But GLP-1s could be an option. There's only 2 approved right now for weight loss. That's Wegovy and Zepbound. So those are the 2 that we would prescribe. And Wegovy is the one that we most often prescribe. And we get that through AS Meds, which Brittany mentioned earlier. We already do a lot of medications through AS Meds for your group via mail order. And we are in the process of doing the yearly analysis where we look and see if there's any other medications that would be more cost effective to go through AS Meds and to add to your formulary. So this is a program we have available if you're interested. I will say it can get expensive for the patients who do wind up after that 3 months meeting the requirements, getting on the weight loss medications. It's about $800, $850 a month for those medications, even at our reduced cost through AS Meds, if they are on a GLP-1. And again, so we try to start them on a lower cost medication at first, but sometimes for various health reasons, people can't take some of those lower cost medicines. And also, sometimes for various health reasons, they don't qualify for a GLP-1 either.
So you said their copay is $850 a month?
No, that's what the plan worked, what we would bill back to you all, but that's the cost and the medication from.
What is their copay?
There isn't a
There
copay
isn't.
currently if they come through the clinic. Now, we could say for this program, if you wanted to implement a fee, we wouldn't call it a copay for legal reasons, I guess, but we could say there is a fee related to this program. And so if you wanted to have the patients have some skin in the game financially, you could say there's a fee of X number of dollars for you to participate.
How long does the medicine last for? Because we're looking at the one, you got 1314 to 1465 a month, and the other 1090 a month. What's the average duration of taking the medication?
So when they sign up with us, we agree, the provider and the patient agrees, and they sign a contract with us to say, we're gonna get you to this healthy weight range, which might not always be in a normal BMI range, but we agree on what that weight loss should look like. And then when the patient reaches that weight loss is when they would start titrating off of the medication.
my question, what's the average time? What are we talking about investment per employee?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the person and the amount of weight that they're gonna lose, but it could be anywhere from 8 months to 2 years.
So if it was 2 years at $1,465 a month, is what we're talking about, per employee.
But I think, and two, like you could, again, it's your plan, you can make whatever decisions around it you want to. You could consider this in advance of lap band. I don't know, you know, how you want to look at it. Just making you aware of a program that we have available that we are doing for some other groups.
What about our county school group?
They are doing this.
They are doing
So-
this.
Along those lines, do they cover weight loss in your health plan?
They do not.
Okay, and then are they only allowing folks to get meds through you guys, or can they go through their PBM?
They can
Just
only
you.
come through us. It's
Okay.
locked out on their PBM.
So it's just like, so that is the current status, so your health plan right now does not cover weight loss medications. There are specifics for lap band surgery and those types of things, but you don't cover the meds at all right now.
They don't either.
No.
They don't, but I will say, you know, they have a third-party data analytics company that pulls in all of their claims data, and through that, they discovered and are working on a group in this area, and I want to be careful about what I say, who are prescribing these medications, and they're being paid for by their plan.
They're saying that they have different diagnoses than perhaps they might. Yes, that is common practice, and we see it in certain clinics.
So they're falsifying
Correct.
And so potentially your plan is already paying for medications for weight loss when it shouldn't be.
And I don't know, all this legal, like what we can say and what we can't say. Can I just say, so they're saying they're pre-diabetic, but maybe it's just border.
Or they're saying they're a diabetic. You have to be a
Yeah.
diabetic to receive the medication.
I know my doctor keeps testing my sugar level and really like saying, oh, you're just not. And I'm like, why do you keep saying
it.
that?
So what are you considering, what do you guys use as your benchmark for diabetes?
7,
A1C?
right? Is
No.
6 or 7?
7?
I think it's 7,
You
right?
using 7?
For now, for
Yeah.
your program, we look at pre-diabetics for your
But I'm talking
wellness
about-
What do you
program.
consider
I'm talking about for
pre-diabetic?
the,
This is a weight loss medication program, so we don't look at diabetes. It would be outside of diabetes. If you truly have diabetes, you're gonna receive whatever medicine is appropriate for diabetes.
In our plan.
There's a way to get around the ones that are reporting those wrong, because Blue Cross for certain medicines require prior approval and they make them send in labs. And they see if you've got a lab and you're not a diabetic and you're reporting that would actually be insurance fraud. So the question is, you can move those, I don't know if Blue Cross on there, you could technically move those to prior authorization drugs annually. And I don't know if Blue Cross gives us that option or not. I know there's certain drugs that require prior authorization or annual.
The GLP-1s do.
Exactly, so if they're sending in the labs, that's really cut down on what they're saying all this fraud's going on and we're paying for it anyway. Because they've got to send in labs where they're actually diabetic. Unless they're sending falsified labs, and they wouldn't be doing that. You know, I understand what the schools are saying, but if it's a prior authorization drug, it's harder to do that.
And I have the PA process, because Scott sent me what that was for GLP-1s
And it's
by
prior
Blue
authorization.
Cross. So all members taking GLP-1s will need a PA, including those currently on the drugs. If a member has a documented type 2 diabetes diagnosis, or if the provider includes a diagnosis with the pharmacy claim, will cover and process the drug at the pharmacy as usual. Otherwise, the member's provider has to confirm the type 2 diagnosis before the sale can continue. Drugs with approved PAs keep the same quantity limit.
And I think that means they have to send in the labs, and maybe
Right.
the PA, they'll have to do. So that means your doctor has to send in your lab showing you are diabetic.
You may not have the problem. I don't know what their PA process looks like. I just know that that's a,
That's usually what they do with drugs that are high for that, and do a prior authorization process. You know, make the doctor send labs and a request.
I don't think labs get it sent in.
That one don't?
No.
But some
There's
drugs
some of this
do.
I can't speak to right now because of certain
Some drugs
investigations
don't.
going on, but.
I know that some do, but I don't know if this one
the other program I wanted to make you aware of, which I think can be very helpful for your population, is the case management program. And Board of Education also uses this program, but we have an RN who focuses on high-cost claimants. Like, we could look at all of those who've written tracks on a monthly basis who are reaching that threshold, but even people under that threshold who just need additional help navigating their health care. And so she spends a lot of her time coordinating record share between multiple specialists to reduce like the number of labs that are repeated unnecessarily because the cardiologist is ordering the same labs as the nephrologist. And we also have the labs as well, right? So coordinating and sharing records. She's done some really creative things for patients who maybe can't financially afford getting to their specialists. We've had some patients who are costing the plan a lot of money because they're not able to go see their specialists and get on the medicines and the regimens that they need. So she's helped coordinate medical rides for those folks and do some really creative things, even as far as like going onto Nestle's website and getting free protein supplements sent to a patient's house who needs that. So I do think that the case management program would be a benefit, and she would focus specifically on those high-cost populations, and then we can look at other populations as well.
What type of a matrix are you using for success on that program?
A little easier for the Department of Education because they do have this third-party analytics vendor, and so we code all of our claims and we can see directly how those patients are being impacted and how the claims dollars are being impacted. But for your population, we would again continue to code so we know the number of visits she's seeing per month for your patients, and then she'll kind of keep a list as well of the improvements and things she's seeing.
Is the charge of this option per patient or a group charge?
It's a group charge, so it'd be like all the rest of the staffing charges that you all get. It's a split of her salary, so they would pay 86% and you would pay the 14% of her salary.
So yours is not implemented yet. This is another employee.
This is a potential new ad if you wanted to look at it.
So what is the cost?
I estimated it would be around $28,000 a year, splitting her
next page.
salary. Yes, sorry.
That's okay. So splitting her salary,
Flip your note. Yep, yeah.
there it is.
There we
Thank
go.
you. So splitting her salary, we're talking about splitting it with the schools.
This would be your portion.
So right now, the school is covering her whole salary, so if we did this, it would, and I look at us all together, right? It's
Yeah.
the citizens' tax dollars all together.
Right.
So we're already paying her salary. But this would just be us moving a little bit of it back over to the county side.
And her focusing on your patients as well.
I understand.
Yes.
So this is 28,000 a year just for this one person, for the county?
Yes.
What you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's probably gonna be a little less than that, but that was my estimate.
Is she gonna be able to, how long have you had this program in place? I'm just wondering if the school does have more employees that she's managing. Does she have enough of a work schedule that she could carry an additional load?
She does currently have the capacity. And we actually have budgeted 2 RNs with them, but we haven't had to grow to that just yet. She's been able to manage herself.
If you picked us up, are you gonna schedule 2 RNs and then the cost would increase?
No, she has the capacity right now to take on your population. And obviously, it may grow over time, right? I hope it does, and she's able to engage more and more folks, but right now, she has the capacity to pick you guys up without any additional cost to either group.
Okay. So just to clarify, you've presented us 2 additional options that we need to be thinking about as possible add-ons for the plan.
No decision that needs to be made today. I just want to make you aware of what we have.
No, I really appreciate this, and after you've walked through it and have had a chance to look at it, it is becoming clear, but I don't know, about the other committee members. I need time to think about this.
And there's just some more information regarding both programs as you flip through here. Some examples of patients who've helped with case management, different things like that, but we've covered the high points.
Is there an estimated savings on any of that versus the cost, or do you guys have anything on either one of the programs?
Thank you.
I could probably share what we're seeing on the school side, because again, they have the ability to track that through that third-party group.
So like on the 28, we could compare it to what we think we're gonna save. But
Yes.
the other one's gonna be hard to see, especially if you're talking 24 months up to $1,500 a month, you're talking $36,000
And
in
it
medication.
is, right, it's an
It'll be
expensive.
very hard to save that unless it saves you a major heart condition or something of that nature.
And, right, that is the hope. And through that Vital Insights data, I think it was, I would have to go back and double check my numbers, but it either cost the plan $10,000 or $12,000 on average per year for people who are obese, who would fall into that range. So the hope would be they wouldn't be on the medicine long-term, they would stay within a healthy weight range, and then that additional cost the plan is paying every year for them being obese piece would eventually pay for the medicines plus save.
So I'd like to make a motion to defer this to old business, and we can talk about it in future meetings. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So if we could just have that on old business. Is that the conclusion of one-to-one?
Yes.
Very good, thank you. We'll move into old business. The first item is the OJI plan at the sheriff's office.
You want me to go into the details?
Yes, and, yes, if you could. And you're gonna tell us the details from the financial side, and Mr.
Well, I think
Sittler
we'll-
from the legal side, or
I
are we
can
gonna
just
cover both? or-
Tell you what I've gotten in Mr. Sittler, maybe the best is, I can give you the history. Before I got here a couple of years, and it's only through the sheriff's department, they started making up the difference through their budget. So what you got on the OJI plan is an employee that is on OJI gets paid 2/3 of their average salary from the previous year, correct?
66.
Yeah, which is 2/3, 66, and that amount they receive, because it is in lieu of a valid workers' comp claim, is tax exempt. The sheriff's department, before my time, started making the other third up out of their budget by paying it to them. I had questions about it. I was earlier told that it was allowed, that they could do it, so, and I'm not gonna throw any names in, but I was told that, so we brought back. The questions come up again because of twofold. One, you technically can end up making more being on OJI doing this. Looking at the tax issues, we tax them on the non-OJI and don't tax them on OJI, so I think we're fine on the taxability. But talking to Mr. Sittler, the same question that I had has came back up, and he is not in concurrence with the earlier, because page 5 of your OJI, if you look at 1-103, on page number 5, toward the last sentence, it says, "This shall be provided exclusively payments by this plan."
I'm sorry, tell me again which one.
Page number 5 of your
Okay.
agenda packet.
Sorry, I was looking at the page that's numbered 5.
It should have a number 5 on the right side of you.
Okay.
Is that number 5 on it? Yes. It says 1-103 under authority that these shall be, the exclusively what's provided is provided through the OJI for payment of on the job injury. And then it goes down to 105 and repeats that, and repeats it all the way through the plan. That's what I'm looking at. So I sent the sheriff an email, because my question is, I'm not sure what legal authority we have to be paying the additional 1/3, which is a question I had a while back, and I think Mr. Sittler, I don't want to speak for him, had the same question, but I think he had a deeper question, that we're basically carving out one group of employees and paying them more than we are all the other groups that are on OJI. So I think he's got that concern, but I'll let him speak to his concerns on it.
Yeah, that's, if I may, that's the first thing that jumped out at me is they're county employees or they're not county employees. So I've got to have a policy that covers everybody. That's the only way I can defend the county when somebody's allegedly deviated, is that, no, we didn't, because this is our policy. So now we've got the sheriff doing the policy different than the rest of the county, so that's the
You're
first
saying
problem.
it's hard to defend that we're not deviating when we are deviating?
We point on deviating. So then that was my first problem with this, is the fact that if it's a county employee, it needs to be applied to all county employees, this standard for OJI. The other issue is, I was talking to Mr. Long about this, is when they get paid the difference, are they technically being paid full-time to not work? What does that do to the tax status? What benefits are they getting having that extra 33% thrown on their check? Do we tax any of it? And I'm gonna say Uncle Sam's gonna want its piece in some way, shape, or form, regardless of how small. So that in and of itself is a problem too. I think it's such a problem that we need to get something moving to get everybody in the county on the 66 1/3 and allow no deviation from that.
The tax issue I can answer, we are treating the first task as workers' comp, non-taxable, the second we are taxing. The other thing we've run into is if we let them work this other third, they actually get TCRS credits, which no other employee on OJI gets. So you're really getting multiple benefits to a carved out group outside of the plan. I'm not sure what we're paying them for because we're technically, the plan says this is exclusive and we're making payments for time not worked. That's where I'm coming about. That's the question I had earlier. Looking at the OJI plan, I think you actually was looking at it and brought it up that it says exclusivity, so I brought it back to Mr. Sittler, and his plan, his opinion paralleled mine back in 2009. That basically that this plan says you can only have this, there's not authority to have the other one, and we're paying additional amounts for nothing. His kind of paralleled mine, plus he brought up the issue of possible, we're not following the policy and it could be looked at as, I guess, discriminatory.
Very discriminatory.
We're discriminatory and against groups of employees right now.
Mr. Hyde?
When did this start?
About my understanding, about a year or two before I started. 7 or 8, it was one of those years. You may know which year, the 2007 or 2008.
I don't remember specifically, but it was.
But I brought up questions and I was told that they had a right to do this, and I questioned how, for the same thing that you were questioning, but you brought it back up as the chairman, so I ran it back through legal. Their opinion paralleled my initial opinion. Pretty much all the concerns Mr. Sittler has is the same concerns I had in 09, so we've kind of come full circle back around.
And just to revisit what you've said, is there any reason we were doing it other than we were doing it?
I was told that there was an employee that about lost everything, so they weren't getting paid, but I'm not really sure because you get paid 2/3 tax-free. So when you do that, you're coming close to your normal salary. One of the reasons you don't come 100% of your salary is it encourages you to go back to work. So if I'm paying you 100% on tax, 66, 2/3 non-taxable, 1/3 taxable, I'm not really seeing the incentive to go back to work. That's kind of a logistical issue. The other issue, this plan says it's exclusivity. If this is exclusive, what are we paying that other third for? And then it brings up the question that Mr. Sittler's got. If an employee sues them under OJI, their number one argument is we've done this for this group, why not be? And it's not even spelled out. It's not following the OJI plan.
I understand.
In my digging in on this was, I believe at some point in time, the nature of the work the sheriffs did, they were trying to use that as a way to elevate the need for the 100% because of the difficulty, the challenges they have as deputies, the risks they take. But that's still gonna set us up for a discriminatory problem because I would argue holding a sign on the highway while the highway's being paved is pretty dangerous. So are they gonna get shoved in this? And that'll be exactly the kind of lawsuit I see coming out of this. Why does he get 100%? I don't.
And I can tell you how it came back up is when you become chairman, you were doing your diligence, so you've asked me about this, which was basically the same concern that I seen back in 09, so that's why I went back up to legal and then back around to you, Madam Chairman.
Mr. Hyde, do you have something?
Who would have the authority to correct this? Would it be a commission issue?
I think right now you just need to tell me that it's not authorized payroll and we just tell them that future ones aren't paid. Right now, there's running through payroll and they're putting them into payroll. Question is, what are we paying them for? And it may be before we go that far, is to invite the sheriff down to kind of discuss it with him at least.
I think we've already
Let's invite him to
discussed
this
that.
one.
If I may, if you want to shortcut this, the easiest thing to do, unless it's been a while since I read the policy, but the policy does not create an exclusion or a deviation for any department. All we have to say is we're enforcing the policy, and that kills anything beyond 66 and third.
Basically, there's no legality for them to pay.
There's nothing for us to do because we're enforcing what's already been
So
passed.
I sent him an email discussing it, the taxes, I think's fine, based on my opinion. My other question is, I also informed him I couldn't find anything legally authorizing these additional payments based on what this plan says. So that's kind of, unless Eric sees something different, I think it's
I have a
pay for
question
nothing at this point.
for case management. How many people are currently out on OJI at the moment? How many cases are you
I have
managing?
2, and they're both
Yes.
shared.
You have 2.
My question, the ones you've already got in there, are you gonna suddenly change or let them finish up before you?
Yeah, I've always been a big believer,
Follow your
if I may,
policy.
is write out what you got, make it effective now forward.
Yeah.
I agree.
That seems to minimize potential problems.
You have a motion?
I have a motion to let the two sheriff's employees run out their workers' comp issue. And then once that's finished, then the policy is implemented as it's written, and there's no more discrepancy, all that. So that's my motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Are those two on this right here?
No.
They're not.
It's separate from that.
It's separate.
If it's an injury to do with work, it should not be claimed to health insurance, it should be claimed to OJI.
Right.
And that may not always happen, but we try to make that happen.
Do we, may I ask a question?
Yes, sir, Mr. Hyde.
Do we have any idea since 2008 roughly how much we have spent through this deviation?
No, because it doesn't come from me. I pay the 66 2/3, and they're paying the other a third out of their budget.
So you could-
I don't pay it.
Could you calculate that for us? You know what the 66 is, you could come up with a 33.
I can try, yeah.
And roughly,
How far did you want me to go back?
well,
Since
you said
2009?
2008 was the beginning of this with the sheriff's department. And my second part of that question would be, out of curiosity, about what does that cost us per employee in the sheriff's office? Now, I know seniority would make a difference in salary, but just roughly, are we talking 500, 1,000, 1,500? What? Do you have any
I don't
idea?
have any idea. I'll see if I can come up with a number for you.
I just would caveat that with, this will take some time. So,
Just you'd have to pull out all these claims,
yeah,
and
that,
50% of what was paid.
we're doing hard file digs at this point in the game, to go back that
I
far.
thought you might have that. Don't do anything that's gonna cost us more money to gather that's already there and done. But I was just curious as to what that was costing and how many. But
Is there
that's
some
it.
number that you could give us with like 20 minutes worth of work to give us an overview of by year how much OJI has been costing? I think that might help us understand a little bit more. Like per year OJI, Mr. Long probably has a huge, a roll-up number of some point
That's our
that we could
financials.
just
You
see.
mean temporary total disability, just the temporary total disability numbers?
I'm not quite sure which numbers you
see.
have, but something to give us a little bit more detail, but without taking a ton of resources.
I'll see what I can come up with.
Problem with the OGI claims, they include the payments to the people, plus they include things for like rehab, medical, they're all together.
Well,
They're all together.
I separate out my.
Well, hers maybe, but not on the financials, we wouldn't.
Okay, so
I
just
have
without
a
a lot of
separate
time,
category.
whatever you can give us some,
I'll see
so,
what I can-
Commissioner Hyde would just like a little bit more detail.
Are you wanting all OGI or just the sheriff's department?
Just the ones that have deviated.
Okay.
Just those ones.
Well, actually, I wouldn't mind seeing the other side, because that's where, when we start talking about a labor issue, that we would have to address. If it's easy.
I'll see
I don't
what
want a lot of resources.
Yeah, I'll see what I can come up with. I may not be able to go back to 2008 without a lot of the research.
I understand there's some problems.
Who happened to be the sheriff at this time
What?
in 2008?
Was that Barker? Sheriff Barker?
What was the question?
Who was the sheriff at that time?
Yes, it was Sheriff Marcher, and then it went through their last sheriff.
And you know, my feeling about this is that not necessarily take anything away from anybody. Either bring everybody up to the same standard or take them down to the same standard, because it's hard to explain to one county employee what you're doing this for them and not another. And that's how I feel about it. Not against any department, but we just can't have a maverick like that.
Any more? Do you have something else to add to that, Mr. Loin?
No, my only thing is if you changed everybody, my only concern is if you're paying 2/3 of your salary non-taxable, 1/3 taxable, there's a potential to make more money not working.
Right.
Which is gonna create an incentive to continue on the plan longer, which is gonna increase your costs.
I still question that, because if you're getting 100% of your pay, you're getting paid 100%. I believe it's gonna be interpreted as a fully taxable event, and then there's gonna be the accruals of time, vacation,
I already do all that.
things of that nature. So you basically just said, we're not treating you as OJI, we're just paying you not to do anything.
Right.
And here's your full salary. So
Oh, I
I
see.
believe it's gonna be a bigger problem tax-wise than just simply, hey, we tax the extra third.
So
Okay.
we have
If we
already
keep
taken the vote, but along those lines, I understand your concerns, but my concerns would be more the employees that do not have this benefit and they can go back and recoup it from the county, and what kind of expenditure we would incur from that. Because we do need to, by labor, treat everybody equally. So I see
Yeah.
your point, and I see another point also, and we have taken the vote to put the policy in place with no exclusions.
After
These two run out.
Exactly.
Yes.
So if we could,
After we take the minutes, I'll have them sent to the sheriff, the copy of the minutes, we'll know what's going on.
So what's the time frame for these two?
What, they're coming to a close, they're about to go back to work full-time,
Okay.
just about, maybe another month or so.
does anyone else have anything on the OJI plan? And regarding the sheriff, if he would like to come and speak to this, it would be readdressing, changing the plan. So we could, if, in the future, if we need to talk about that, we could.
But let me be from the beginning, if you do that, I think you're gonna incur significant costs.
Yes, I think that would be an item to discuss. As we move on, old business, item B, name of the committee.
I think you're named by resolution, that's what I was talking to the law director. I think on your last resolution, it named this committee.
I believe
You'd have to
so.
go back to commission.
It merged a couple into this one.
What do you need from this committee?
What do
For a
you
name?
want to do?
Do you, is this our resolution name?
SIB, I believe, is what everything got roped under.
It should be self-insurance board committee. We can verify that, but
What about the liability part that would merge?
it's all self-insurance. It's
It's all
liabilities too.
self-insurance.
We have.
Property and casualty?
But it's the same thing, we're self-insured. Well, we're a partially self-insured. We pay claims, but we have reinsurance on like buildings and liability. So we're self-insured with some of it being insured for catastrophic, I guess.
So are you recommending that does the resolution name not match our name on this agenda? Do we need to change something, or we're just verifying?
I don't think so. I think it was a discussion last time you guys
Yeah.
thought you might want to change it.
We'll change the name.
In
You
the
might want to
minutes.
change it, but the thing is, I think it'll have to go back to county commission if you change it.
So,
Y'all had suggested, based on the minutes, changing it possibly to Sumner County Insurance and Liability Board. I think SIB catches everything, but I mean, I don't think that's a legal question so much as,
any input from the committee?
I think you need to leave it alone.
I think so too. I was the one that brought that up because of primarily what Bob said. It doesn't say liability, but it's not worth going through all
Excellent.
of that.
So no action needed. Item clears our agenda. Next item, on the old business, smoking surcharge and spousal surcharge. Mr. Long, would you like to present?
Here's the two things that kind of catch your attention. One, we're trying to, for the employees' health and to keep the plan viable, we're trying to keep nicotine usage to a minimum. You have a nicotine charge, which is $25 a payroll, but you have a spousal charge, which is $50 a payroll, which is double that. The spousal charge only applies if the employee's spouse does not have insurance somewhere else. So it has nothing to do with claims, cost, or anything else. We get more complaints about that than anything else, and then mentioning it to legal, they kind of the same concern. What real justification do we have on that one? know, is it 50 for her, or it should be 50s for 50 is kind of what we're looking at.
You mean both, like the male, the employee and,
Well, right
they should be
now-
the same,
Well, right now, what I'm saying is, two employees exactly the same, correct?
right?
She has her spouse and herself, she has her spouse and herself. If her spouse's employer offers her insurance, she gets charged 50 more. If this one don't, she don't get charged the 50. Well, you really gotta think about that. If you're self-insured and you don't offer your self-insurance, you get the $50. That's what we're saying, there's not a lot of consistency in that.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that brought the attention up is the smoking surcharge was significantly less than the actual spousal.
So I'd like to propose that we take these one issue at a time and split the smoking and the spousal apart. So it's talking about smoking first on the item. So the smoking surcharge is currently $25. As Mr. Long has alluded to earlier, we're seeing a rate increase in that population, correct?
Yes, and that's what we talk about premiums, that is the non-preferred plan have the largest increase in it.
But we've heard from our consultants, we have to be careful when we raise fees, and it's a moving item.
So what I'm reading here, and maybe I'm incorrect, what I'm reading, so you have, bless you, $25, so it says, do not submit this form, you will be enrolled in the standard insurance plan where we charge a smoking charge of $25 for you and your spouse. So what that's saying is if the spouse is smoking, okay, the employee is smoking, and the person in the home, the spouse, is maybe not smoking, but they're on secondhand smoke, then they're still paying $25? I'm confused about this.
It's $25 per smoking adult. So your children's not involved, but if both the spouses are smoking, then it's $25 each, correct, Amy?
It's nicotine use.
Nicotine use.
Nicotine
So
use,
if they
yeah.
test positive or.
Only
they
one
use
does,
nicotine-
it's just the 125, but not another 25, but they both go on the non-preferred plan. Because the whole family goes, it's all or nothing.
Okay,
It's the only way
gotcha.
to work. So if both of them smoke, there is $25 per participant.
Okay. And the idea is this is not enough to cover the costs?
It's definitely not enough to go.
No, not really.
That's kind of the one. And then the other one, we get the most complaints about the inconsistency in the spousal.
So
That may be something you want to leave alone.
for the smoking right now, the question is we're not looking at
Well, it's not just
reducing it,
smoking,
we're
it's
looking at
chewing
increasing it.
and all
Vaping.
tobacco.
Or leaving it the same.
It's vaping, chewing. I'm just bringing it to your attention right now. We have an increase in that one plan. The smoking, when I think, Brittany, you said the smoking was not being counted if we're affordable or not toward the calculation.
That's what I can find, is that it's not part of it. And so you can be harsher with your financial hit on tobacco nicotine type.
What about vaping?
It's the same
Yeah,
thing.
same,
There you go.
if it's nicotine. Now, if they're vaping
Well, I know
something
that,
else,
But what I'm saying is vaping is dangerous. So,
But right now, we're getting ready to start March. The plan starts over in July. So what I think may be a good thought process right now is leave the surcharges the same, but make a recommendation to change them for next fiscal year. That way it gives people a whole year to know
yeah.
if you don't try to stop smoking, it's going to cost you a lot more.
Right.
You know, we've just got March, April, May, June right now. It's going to hit these people more, and they've got no time to prepare. But if you give them a whole year, or basically 15 months or whatever, and say, well, that $25 is going to be $100 per paycheck
And
starting that year.
It
then
will
you-
take them at least a year to kind of weed away, because it's.
And if they start
smoking
anytime during the
cessation's very
year,
hard.
it's going to decrease their likelihood of an illness for them and
Mm.
for the plan.
Correct.
But my thought is if it was me, and I'm not a smoker, I would be very appreciative if you would give me time to adapt to it if you're suddenly going to go from 25 to 100. But looking at it financially, it needs to be more than double of what the spouse is, or at least double the spouse, which would be $100.
Can you brief the committee on how smokers are determined, the testing?
We do.
Because the committee doesn't.
Once a
Yeah.
year, they do a nicotine test, and the complaints that we get from a lot of employees, and we know it's happening, people will quit for 2 weeks or a week and pass the nicotine test, and then they sign the certification that they're non-smokers, because I hear complaints all the time because they can see people smoking all around the buildings and they know they're not paying them.
So then you need to have a,
Can't do random.
like, every
Random
6
drug
months.
testing is a.
Every
is a-
6
Hey,
months.
Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Yeah. The game sucks that you can't do random drug testing on your employees without.
No, I'm not
cause.
talking about random. You could put in there that, a biannual nicotine testing.
They have to go to, is it a strip
It's
or
a
they have to
blood
go to the
test.
clinic?
It's a blood
Or the
test.
blood
It's a
test.
blood test.
So you would do a biannual blood test?
How much does it cost to do a strip test for nicotine?
Like a saliva test?
Uh-huh.
I don't know. We don't do it anywhere. I would have to look up the
Oh,
price
okay.
for you.
That's my question. You could do it
And I
every time
think
they go
the
to
extra
clinic.
poking is also.
Commissioner
They're
Brown?
already getting their labs drawn for like their A1C, so we
What
just draw
about
it as part of that.
dependents?
It doesn't, it just covers the spouse and the employee if they have a
So you can
spouse.
have
It doesn't cover
a
dependents.
16-year-old.
That's a whole different issue on its own.
If I can, from a legal standpoint, I think your best course of action is to chase this with $1. I wouldn't increase, nobody here likes being told what to do, and the last thing they want is a bunch of commissioners telling them what they can and can't do, and they're gonna test them, and they're gonna do all this other stuff. So if you do the price hike, I think you're gonna start weeding some people off that way. And as far as the spousal thing, the easiest way out of that is to simply say you're bringing your spouse or you're not. If you are, it's $50 or whatever price you come to. I don't care if it's offered, or if it's not offered. If you're bringing your spouse, it's $50 extra.
And that can
Those
help
are
with part of
and then you don't
5%.
have to argue any points around that. It's applied to everybody. Unless y'all see some hiccup as far as the insurance
Unless
side.
you'll know an answer, I'd like to defer and find out what the schools is using and look at what standards are with other government entities on these fees.
On both of them?
Yeah, on both of them, unless there's an objection to doing that.
No, I can get some information.
All in favor of deferring? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No.
So it's all business, you're getting numbers from the schools.
Yeah, Brittany.
Yeah.
Amy called and asked the schools and.
Amy, I can try to
It's okay.
gather information from
Laura's not
Read
the
it.
state plan. BOE, she's got BOE, I'm sure.
All right, if y'all could just take care of this. Thank you. So, under new business, item A.
The first one is an OPEB we have to do it each year. We have to do a full actuarial 1 year, and then the next year we can do an update. This year's a full actuarial. What OPEB stands for is other post-employment benefits. That means insurance you provide to retirees. You have a closed plan, but we have to calculate that every year for our financials. Plus, it gives you an idea of how much money you are going to owe. But I just need approval of the committee to go ahead and sign the contract and go ahead and start the study because we've got to have it for the end of the fiscal year.
I make a motion to approve that.
And I'm going to take a vote on that. I just want to know, do you, is that a competitive contract or with
We-
professional service?
We consider it professional service. I bid it the first year several years ago, but they're the same one that does it year to year and updates it, so it's cheaper because of that, and it's better content, everything, the same results. You don't want results changed by small changes in the study either. Plus, they are looking at the price out in the market, they're still competitive and they perform.
What's it cost?
I think it's 6200.
6200.
62.
Yeah, because it's a full report this time.
Yeah, it's not the full every year.
All right, I'm sorry, I just had a question.
And it's not changed significantly for several years.
All right,
We've used it for
so
a
we
while.
have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You have our approval to
Plus
sign
it's
that
way over the
contract.
bid limit. The next one is Thornthwaite's contract. This is an actuarial on the clinics. A couple of things we do need to know the average cost for a very finite reason. We charge COBRA premiums and we include the clinics in there. So under IRS regulations, you have to have an actuarially determined premium to charge that. Well, we do it, one, we get actuarials from Blue Cross, we get actuarials from the OPEB, and we get actuarials from Mr. Thornthwaite. The only thing left is a very immaterial amount, so we are doing actuarially determined premiums. But that is required, and it's $28.50, and his is a small contract. It is going up each year, but I don't think you're going to find, it's not going to be worth the funds to find a different one, or you may not even find it cheaper.
Yeah, I motion for Mr. Loring to sign that contract.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And just for the record, I'd like it to be known that this committee is 5 members, so we still have a quorum even though Mr. Hyde has stepped out. Item C, lap band policy.
Let me go through that. We've included several items because there's been a lot of discussions about the lap band. One of the discussions we heard was that a provider or a department, we're not sure which one, told employees that it included spouses. The lap band procedure has always said employees and has never included spouses from the very beginning. Number 2, on the lap band, at one time it was changed from, for one instance, it was changed from 5 to 2 years is our understanding, but a form got out some way with 2 years on it because we found some of those lately. The other thing is everybody.
Could you define that 5 and 2 years, what that means exactly, just so
That you
everybody's
have to
clear?
be an employee for the county for at least, is it 5 years? And you have to be on the plan to last, how many years was it? Is it 2 or 5?
The insurance, you have to be on that 5 years.
5 years.
Did
And
we
the-
clarify that last time because we had, you know,
We
that,
talked about it, yes.
but we haven't done anything about
Well,
it?
that's-
Well,
a form that would never-
a new waiver was brought to my attention that specifies only 2 years. That was handed out prior to me.
And we don't
So
know who did that.
where are we on clarifying it and making sure that our papers are,
You need to clarify what you're exactly wanting to do today, and then we'll send out emails on it.
and the clarification we need, and I just want, because when we discussed it last time, it was a difference between, I think the question was 5 years of employment and 5 years of insurance,
Yes, that was our understanding.
and it was an and/or.
Well, and that
Wording.
employee had a break where they had went
Yes,
to part-time.
right.
So it needs to say
So
full-time.
what does it need to say now? What is your recommendation?
What I think your intent was, and this is several things that's on the form, the form clearly says employee on the waiver, and I think Mr. Sheep and his group's going to have to sign. So it was only employees. So basically, this isn't covered by Blue Cross Blue Shield. You guys did a carve out for it to be covered. Under your EOB, it specifically refers them back down to this office. Right now, we've run into where there's providers and other people telling them what they're going to be covered, but it specifically refers them back to this. The thing it says it's employees. It says it's the lower of 18,000 or 90%, and it says on the form here that we've got procedure, which means it doesn't cover any kind of skin reduction or any kind of other procedure. We've had that discussion. And the original intent was 5 years on the insurance continually. One time there was a waiver during COVID for 2 years, and it got into the forms, and we don't know how, but that needs to be clarified as it's 5 or 2. And we've attached the minutes here. They're not 100% clear.
Yeah, but that was just public recognition. That was just public
Mhm.
recognition.
But they did it for two years, down from 5. A motion was made to hold to amend the plan to change from 5 years down to 2. Continuous over Sumner County will waive the requirement this one time with 1-to-1 due to the COVID-19. So then it says one time down there, but some way it got construed to be 2. So I'm not really sure, but we need to, or the committee needs to clarify exactly which way we're running right now.
And know that we have an employee that's currently working on the assumption that the 2 years is all she had to meet, because that's what she was told at the time.
And if I can step away for a moment, Mr. Guthrie, do you have anything you'd like to add to this?
Just going back to review the minutes, the nearest I remember, an employee who did not have 5 years approached the board, and we made a policy change, not just for the one employee, but across the board. The nearest I remember when I'm going back to the minutes, then just verify.
So we have a couple of items before our committee. The first item on here is the spouse. Is this policy for just the employee or for the spouse? I think I heard that.
The form says spouse, and I'm sorry. The form says an employee, and it's never said anything different, and never been the committee's contention that it covered a dependent, and we never have covered a dependent. But there was a provider that said if it was covered for an employee, it should be covered by a dependent, but that's not really for a provider to determine that.
They
were
should have
making
been
comments.
educated on
The provider shouldn't have been making comments. They should have called Blue
Right.
Cross, and they've been forwarded.
that, right?
Brought really the county for provider.
So,
use of forms
to
people.
clarify, at this point, we believe we know, the policy says it's employee only. So, Mr.
So-
Hyde?
What are we doing?
Years ago, when I was on this committee, when it was first established, there was an exceptional case that came before us. I don't remember what department or what it was, and I was actually involved in asking for an exception to take care of that situation, and then it just kind of grew from there. And we had said after that it would become a matter of people would have to come and explain themselves to the board and what the situation was and doctor recommendations and so forth. Now, past that, I don't remember what happened, but it was just the employee then. And I do know that, forms have been created and things have been said on forms that may or may not have been the original intention, but having been involved in that very first exception to it, it was the employee, and they had to work for a while with the county, and they had to come individually to explain their exception.
Can I make a suggestion on the form issues, that there is a form, like in the military, we use form blah, 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 would that be added to the form so that it's an actual tracking document instead of just some form that eventually somebody else will create?
It is, but the thing is, there's one got out there, we don't know where, that has the 2 years on it. And when we're looking at the minutes, because it was during COVID-19, and I don't want to mention the employee, but I can remember the employee, they said they couldn't make it down to the clinic because of COVID-19. And I think, is that the one you're talking about, Mr. Guthrie? And it was a one-time for that one employee, and that's what's in the minutes. I've got the minutes here. But it was because he had started and had to stop and start and stop and couldn't make it because of COVID-19, and that was where the 2 years. But after that, someone, and probably my office, but I wasn't aware they did it, put the 2 years on the form.
I think,
I'm sorry.
back on what Mary said, I think that we could be, unless we do something like that, there could be a lot of forms floating around out there. So I really think it ought to be some way noted that it's an official form, revised on such and such a date, with an explanation that no other form other than this one would be acceptable, so that anyone getting another form would understand that this is the right one.
And you would have a log of your forms, and then you
And I
can
put that in the form of a motion.
It has a revision date on the ones we've got, that's what we're looking at, but we don't know where it came from. So you want us to put a control number from this committee today and want us to sign it?
Yeah, and I meant that in the form of a motion.
Second.
And if I can amend that to say, not just for this item, but for all of your forms, I want to just
I'll
clarify.
accept that.
They have revision dates, they just don't have control
You
numbers.
might want to do a catch-all that this form supersedes all prior forms.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think you all ought to do it legally to where it's pretty solid.
Oh, we want this legal? Okay.
Well,
It's
if
going in half cut.
it costs money, I want it legal, yes.
So we second your motion.
Yeah, so we have a motion, I amended to make it a blanket across all of your
He
policies.
accepted your.
And he accepted, and you have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So we have new requirements for forms. But still on the table is, the current policy is, it's an employee only, and that's how our policy is.
5 year, right?
And our consultant, without any objection, Mr. Shute?
Brittany's researching here, but the form has no authority over the plan document,
Yeah, that's a good
which has to
point.
be amended if you're going to cover something out.
It refers back to us, Bob. Or the plain
Yeah,
document
so
refers back to finance.
The discussion about
Okay,
if employee and dependent, what have you, in the plain document that's in effect today, it says, it doesn't say if it applies to one or the other. It just says for lap bands / non-experimental gastric sleeve procedures, contact your employee benefit specialist for criteria for waivers / requirements on these procedures and steps how to proceed. That's it. It doesn't say just for employees, just for dependents, what have you. It says talk to employee benefits and they're gonna tell you what happens from there. So I'm trying to find the old EOC. I don't know if the old EOC worded it differently, Amy, but I'm trying to find
I
one.
think it's the same.
I'm sure it's very similar, if not exactly the same, but plain document is the plain document is the plain document. This is a stop loss thing. There is no waiver from that.
But we just put a gray area in that said, come back and ask us and we'll tell you.
Right.
Well, then part two of that is, we talked about, is the spouse covered? What about the children?
No, it would
It
have to go
says
through
employee
EA.
only.
Well, that's my whole point, and I think that's why we use that language, so we don't have to have that discussion. It's easier to say just the employee than it is to say, well, these others if. So they tried to keep it really clean, and that's as clean as you can keep it. This is covered, that's not.
And it's never been on the form or anything I'm aware of, or in discussion to cover anybody but.
Yeah.
That's never been up for, but we've had questions lately about covering a spouse. And was it from the department that told them, or they said a provider? We've got all kinds of.
He said both, so I'm not sure who told him.
But the thing is, the provider should have called Blue Cross Blue Shield, and they would refer him over to the EOC explanation of coverage, because the explanation of coverage does not back that up.
So another suggestion is when the employee goes to the provider for this program, okay? And they just have the discussion of what they're going to do. The employee, I would suggest, take the form, which is what it says here, surgeon will sign it, that this is what we would do only. And that way, there's no question, no one reading between the lines, you know. I'm not sure what the provider, was it a surgeon? Was it just a doctor? Or
I don't know.
was it a clinic? One of the clinics?
I wasn't given that information, just that they had been at the doctor, they had checked, they were told that it would cover it if we would approve it.
But that's if we'd approve anything. it
So
could
that's an
cover.
inference. So really, you know, that's really just an inference. It's like me telling my patient, hey, you know, I know your insurance is gonna pay for this $800 a month drug because you have severe depression. Well, that isn't true.
Right.
So that the inference is, so maybe the suggestion is that when the patient is initiating this program or process, that form is given to them to take to the provider so they understand under, you know, the
And
auspices.
typically it is. Typically the patient calls me, or the employee will call me and say, hey, I went to the doctor for this. They called my insurance says to contact you.
Yeah.
So
Well-
in this instance, I don't know what he was initially told, but when he called me all upset, when I told him his spouse didn't qualify, was that, well, no, they said they pay for it.
Well, that's
Like,
they.
That's not how it works.
And he said the department told him that too, so we have a department that's been out there
Director.
Right.
telling people. and
They
it's-
need to be educated.
Well, this department's done other coverages too, so, you know, done other things.
You talking about other elected officials?
No, we're talking about the same departments, told people they're eligible for.
Some other stuff.
FMLA when they didn't work less than a year. So it's not the first time.
If I understand, the current policy from finance is that we cover employees. We haven't been clear under the plan, but when we call, it's always been employees.
It's been clear under the plan. The form has said employees
Yes.
only. It's
So-
always said employees.
I would like to make a motion that, can we update the plan so that it doesn't say call finance? Is that a big thing?
Well, if you're gonna cover it differently than Blue's, like, standard process, they won't be able to do that. I think it's gonna.
It's still
I won't
gonna have to
speak for
just
you, but
say,
if they're
the
gonna do
plan
something
is
different,
called
it
in.
needs to come back to her, yeah.
Every time.
You might want to know what percent's covered for this under Blue Cross Blue Shield. Is it 50%, 40%, 30?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
What percent of the plans even cover the gastric anymore? Is it higher?
Fully insured, very few
what I was thinking.
Less than 5%, self-funded, maybe 20%.
So right now, we are in the minority of covering this, and we've been removing benefits for years from employees, but this is one that you're covering that a lot of plans don't cover. And at the same time, they're requesting for it to be increased, so I mean, it's kind of a double one there. So right here, you're saying 5% on the full insured?
It's probably less than that.
Less than 5 and 20% on sales, so you're in the very small minority that's covering this.
So where we're at is we're covering employees. We can have a discussion on that. We're not currently covering spouses. We can have a motion on that, but I'm asking for,
I would make a motion that you leave it alone. You take employee and
I'll
then
second that.
the
There's
5 years. I
There's a
mean,
possible
it's written
form
right
on
here.
page 31 and 2 other than your control numbers, which it did. We've got the original on there, and then we've got an updated recommendation, which we went and actually, she went by and made things red and underlined. Because there's been the questions about, the ones about the 5 years. And then I think there's also been a question, do we count service with what, BOE? That's been a question for a while.
so
Yes.
let's tap off the spousal item. It's employee only. We're gonna stay with employee only. And then we move on to the piece on the 5 years on the insurance and 5 years of employment. That's the next piece on the table. Right, that's in this.
I think the motion is to go, and seconded was to go with as it was before, which is the 5 and 5. That's how I
To go how,
understood it.
okay, I'm sorry.
Yes,
So,
leave it alone. 5 and 5, 5
well,
years.
we're not, okay. Is that how it is? 5 years,
That's the
5 years of
current one that I have,
employment and
yes.
5 years of
That's what we have
insurance.
in our office.
Yeah, so leave
Leave
the
it on.
policy as it is.
And if I could make one suggestion, if y'all are still going down this form route, somebody make a motion to amend that to include language that from legal that this form supersedes all prior forms.
I make a
That was-
motion.
Yeah, they did
That was already done.
Yeah.
That one
All
was passed.
forms.
Yeah,
All
we've
forms.
had that.
Oh, okay, good. Well,
Put that language
but
in all
we're
forms.
actually implementing this form, and I need
Yeah.
it
Right.
stated that it's implemented with that
Like I
change.
said, all forms,
So, we don't need a motion to leave it the same. We do need a motion to leave it the same.
Or I would do a motion to
Yeah.
accept this form under the,
Okay.
And
And I promised Mr. Guthrie that we could get a word in on this discussion before we finalize it.
can I say one thing? On page 35 is the minutes, and that's what I'm saying, it's kind of vague. And that's what probably what Mr. Guthrie's talking about. It's not really clear. And Mr. Guthrie's probably talking about the same one. I just remember it was during COVID-19, and there was an employee that could not make all the visits because of COVID-19, so they waived that one time. And I thought the 2 to 5 year went the same way because of that was one time, but he was thinking it was permanent, and I'm not really sure because there's a form change, so you may want to let him discuss what he thinks happened. He was on the board.
Commissioner Brown, if y'all don't have an objection to Mr. Guthrie
suspend the
revisiting
rules.
history to
Okay.
suspend the rules.
It's been almost 5 years.
All in favor of suspending the rules? Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed?
No.
Thank you. So I do remember the employer, the meeting, and then going back to look at the minutes, and the way that I interpret those and how I remember this happening was there was a motion made to amend the plan and waive the requirements for one-to-one for that employee due to COVID and the office being shut down. If the intent was to only make the waiver for the employee for the 2 years versus 5, then I don't think that there would have been a mention in the motion to amend the plan. I think the intent then would have been to say, okay, let's waive the requirements for 5 years down to 2 years for this employee. But the minutes clearly state that the motion is to amend the plan from 5 years to 2 years and waive the requirements this one time for the employee for the one-to-one requirements. So I think that based on this, then I think the plan, if you're going to continue with it, is to continue with the 2-year requirement for employment.
I'm saying the minutes aren't clear. It's been 5 years, so.
How many people are currently in the program?
We have 2 that I know officially are in the program, another that has requested information.
For what it's worth, if you do decide to go with the 5 years, then I would respectfully ask on behalf of any employee who is under the impression based on this, that it's a 2-year requirement, that you would honor any employee up until the time that you decide to revert back to the 5 years. Thank you.
So ma'am, well, I guess we'll need to go motion to come back in session.
Yes, motion to come back into session.
Okay.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye. So the people that are involved are currently under the 5-year or the 5-year 2-year?
Yes.
One employee is under the 2-year.
Okay.
One is under 5, and the other, I'm not positive.
So what it would be is that we honor the 5-year 2-year, the 5-year 5, well, that's mute because that's what the policy says, but the 5-year 2-year would be grandfathered, and then from going forward, it would be 5-year, isn't what I...
So would it be 5 years employment, 2 years coverage? Is that what we're looking at? Because this employee is only 2 years employed, and that's what the form says. It's 2 years employed.
What I'm saying is is this a person who's engaging to do it, or is this a person that's already in the plan?
Already working through the plan based on the information she
So they're
was
already
provided.
in that, so that would be a grandfather.
For 2 and 2, you're saying, and then
Yeah.
everybody else is 5 and 5.
Right. Just kind of like what we did with the sheriff's department, we kind of covered them and then moved forward with the other.
Is that your motion?
So what do you want it to be?
I believe Commissioner Janung is saying that the people that are currently in the plan.
No, I'm just, as an overview, what do y'all want it to be?
Are grandfathered, and then we're going to go.
5 years.
You think it needs to be 5 and 5?
Mm-hmm.
So is that, if that's the will, then yeah, then we
Well, she's
need-
making a motion. We haven't voted.
We need to create the caveat, all right.
The grandfather.
I just didn't want to run into this minutes problem
Right.
3 years down the road.
I would support Commissioner Janung in that we've heard from our Blue Cross specialist that only 20% of the self-insurance plans even cover this procedure.
5%.
No, 5%.
And 5% of that,
5%.
of the I thought he said 20% of
Less than
government.
5 of the full insured and less than 20
It was still,
of the self.
we're still in a small
You're in the
minority.
minority that covers
Yeah,
this.
so I will second Commissioner Janung's and support that.
So,
All in favor?
Uh,
Aye. Any opposed?
The other question that keeps coming up is that on our plan only, because we used to be part of the Board of Ed, so they included both of those, but they're really 2 separate plans now. That's been a question that keeps coming up for how long?
Which are, I'm sorry. 2
Basically,
separate plans.
several years back, the non-certified and the county were under the same self-insured health plan. We split apart.
Right.
When this was originally done, we allowed, there wasn't a question. After that, always been the question, do you only count time with the county's plan, or are we gonna include Board of Ed time? That's been a
Understand.
question. that
Do you
keeps
want
coming
that
up.
addressed today?
Probably need to make sure that's
Okay.
only, it's one or the other, and just make sure that's addressed clearly.
So, I'm not sure that we're all clear on it. Let me reiterate and see if I got it. If I was an employee at the school board,
Mhm.
and I've been working there for 3 years, and then I come over to the county, I've been working here for 3 years, have I made my 5 years? Because I got the school board 3 and I got the county 3. Have I made my 5 years, or do I need to be at the county for 5 years? Am I getting this
Right,
correct?
because it's 2 completely separately funded
So
plans, but
that's the item he's asking us to clarify.
is it county only, because the counties is a self-funded plan,
Well,
it's
if
completely separate.
it's county only, then it's county only. I mean, school board has their own gig, right?
Yeah.
So why mix the apples? Mix apples and oranges.
Do you need a motion on that?
I would probably motion to put it in.
Make a motion to make it county only.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Is there any other questions that
Motion
came up? I know that, what I've said is it says 90% of, the lower of 90% of procedure or 18,000. It's always said that too, but we've had several years, and Bob's been here, where people are talking about the other costs, such as the preliminary cost, possible skin. you may want to consider on this form we're looking at, to make sure you put the word only by procedure in underline to make sure everybody's 100% clear.
I remember before, David, when we discussed that, we specifically talked about we're not covering any adverse effects.
Right, or additional, figuring out if you need it done, or the cost of skin folds, medication, anything above that. So I think the word, it says procedure only, but we keep getting questions about other things. It's even been down to the committee before. I think you may want to put the word only in there and underline it.
Right, are you talking about right after 90% up, put only in?
Yeah, for 90% of the
Insert.
procedure only, or a maximum of the total 18. The procedure only, anywhere there's a procedure, just put the word only with it and make it underline and bold. That way they'll make sure they're clear. And then,
Look at number 7,
number 7.
right there, 7.
Yeah, 90% of the procedure. Even number 7 says procedure, but we keep having the question, because Ball's been here a long time, and Mr. Hyde.
Can I ask?
When it keeps
is there-
coming up.
Is there a point in here, and I may be overlooking it, where it defines what a procedure is, what the procedure is?
Yes, it's
Because
at the
I
top.
might think a procedure is something different.
It's at the
than-
very top. It's the first sentence.
Okay, am I,
Well, this is the one we're looking at on page 31.
am I on the wrong
It's
one?
page 32.
Okay, that's fine.
I would probably look at page 31. It's a better kind of draft. But it's at the very top of the first sentence says that.
It does not just say that.
Still. I'm still not seeing it.
Post.
Oh, okay.
Okay, right here.
So that hasn't been on the form.
It's 7, yeah, pre and post classes, follow-up
Where's the-
education.
where does it tell me what the
counseling,
procedure-
et cetera.
Yeah, it
That's here for the procedure.
It's on all the ones that I have.
It says.
If you look on there, what Amy just told me is it actually talks about post-care and stuff.
So, what is this, where, I'm sorry, there's.
If you look on page 31, which was taken from language that existed on this form, it always talks about limited to pre and post-surgery needs, surgical procedures, follow-up classes, education.
Care, counseling. Yep.
So when
The
you,
procedure, whichever is alleged, which includes, but it's not, well, I think, the employees.
Says, but it's not limited to.
so what does surgical procedures mean? You're already doing the gastric lap banding. What is the additional surgical procedure?
I just know we had a discussion where somebody wanted to find out about covering skin folds and other stuff, and
So
they
you
were
need
told
to
by the
take that
committee,
out.
no. So I think you may need to come by and determine exactly what you're covering down through there. They got education classes, care, counseling, et cetera.
I can clearly understand why people are confused.
That's what I'm saying. This is something that was a carve-out, rarely covered.
Counseling, et
And it was
cetera, what
added
does that
in.
mean?
And two other things that was in the discussion was, we're only doing this once,
Yep.
like if it doesn't work, because the second point is there are risks involved in the
Yes.
surgery.
You've had a couple employees die.
There was supposed to be education, so they understood those risks, and I think that's part of the getting ready to have it. The doctors normally do that, because they're trying to protect their liability as well. But I think it was one time, we're gonna pay for this once.
If the form's
5
never
years later, you wanna do it
said that.
again?
It should say one-time procedure of.
Can,
Yep.
can we ask for you to go back and bring us back a more concise?
Right, and I think we need to go to item
Document.
7, and we need to kind of clarify what you as a committee want to cover. The procedure, which includes exactly what.
One-time gastric lap.
Lap band procedure. But what do you want to cover with that? Because we know there's going to be antibiotics
Post-op.
and all the post-op, so what are you guys covering in that 18,000?
Yeah, so what you need, somebody needs to contact, or a surgeon, or someone that's involved in the lap banding procedure, the physician who's going to be doing that in the program, that needs to be brought forward so you can weed that into your document, because you're just making up, they're making up stuff, counseling, et cetera. Well, I could make a lot of et ceteras.
Well, I think their intent was to be the lesser of 90% or 18,000, make sure it was all inclusive.
Yeah.
But if you look at that and you can get the surgery done for 12, does that in surgical procedures include any kind of,
Education.
well, the surgical procedure
Post-op.
could be cosmetic afterwards.
Right.
Say, hey, I need to go along with this. I don't know, that's what, I think you need to clarify as a committee exactly what you're covering. Because this thing's came up over the years several times now.
I'm having a hard time coming back as a committee to say what we're covering because I don't know medically what the words are. And as Commissioner Janung is saying, like where it says et cetera in here and stuff.
Could you put the one-time lap band and any directly related costs to the surgery? Maybe that.
Yeah.
And then that way it would get rid of possible plastic, not to
But
include
again,
plastic surgery.
It needs to be clear what that is to employees on what additional things are or what this is. I don't know how to say, if it was me, I wouldn't know what additional, because to me, I might think that, I would think that I'm gonna need everything done, and that would be the thing.
Well, there is a lot of follow-up with the lap banding. I mean, you have gastric diet, all those things that are involved in that, vitamins. And do they have a specific physician that they work with on this, or?
No, it just requires that they be covered under our plan.
So
Sorry,
let me
ma'am.
go with you on this. Another option, because Vanderbilt, they do a lot of this. This is one of their things. And if we don't know there's no consistency with who's doing it, like they're not going to the same doctor.
And
We
I
didn't want to
haven't gotten
determine
any
the
other
doctor.
information.
I think the
Right.
discussion years ago was the county didn't want to determine the doctor because it could potentially put us, we're selecting your doctor. Something goes wrong when you try to drag us back into it if there's a problem. That was the whole concern. That's why they let them choose it. But the real problem with this whole thing is you've done a carve out. Nobody in here is really that kind of medical professional as far as a surgeon. Number two, we're not a medical insurer, which would know these things. So we've really done a carve out on something rarely covered to try to tie it down. And over the years, it just keeps changing and moving around.
Right.
So it's really confusing, and that's why it came back up here again.
So could I say that basically what it really just needs to say, a one-time lap band procedure with pre and post-op care, not to, a one only.
Simplest would be to grandfather your existing and cut the program. Because it's so rarely covered, and your costs, when we get to premiums, are gonna be.
True.
And that's what you run into. You run into
That's why
these
you have all-
complications. We've had
That's why you have all
a
these
couple
thousands of
die.
dollars
You've got
in
all this
drugs.
stuff here. And there's a reason that Blue Cross isn't covering it under their fully insured or medical because,
It's dangerous.
well, that, and it's apparently not effective of deterring anything, or they would probably cover it more readily. Because they'll cover your acid reflux to prevent cancer in your throat, but they don't cover this, but about 5% of the time.
Are you saying cancel the entire lap band?
That may be your easiest thing, is to grandfather them and then to keep the premiums under control since it's rarely covered. This kind of goes back to when I first got here, me and Bob. Bob brought up the ED drugs, how much they were costing before they were generic. I mentioned it, they cut it, and then I got all the dirty phone calls. So this is really up to you guys, but one of the simpler things is for you to decide to cut it, but I don't get to vote, don't get to recommend it because they're gonna call and fuss at me.
So if we were to go back to how it was before Mr. Hyde started this nonsense, and we just had him come as an exception. Oh, did I say that out loud?
You did.
Do you own it?
I own it.
Okay.
I'll confess.
We could go back to an exception based. Or, I don't know, that just starts all over this. I'm sorry,
Then you don't have
I
the
shouldn't
clear
have spoke at all.
criteria.
So if you make exceptions, then if you ever end up back on stop loss, we can't be making exceptions, so
Oh, I
that
remember
could be a
that from last
problem.
time, yeah.
So the other thing, you can always look at direct contracting with Vanderbilt to do the procedure to see what that cost would look like. I don't know if somewhere closer would do it. I know Vanderbilt has direct contract. They're very hungry. They would love anyone's business, but that's a place that you can look at. It would just be a separate contract with them. But you have to see the Vanderbilt. You have to meet, just like we heard from the weight management program in the clinic. You've got to fit. You've got to get every one of those boxes ticked off. They do the surgery.
That would take care of removing all of this
Yep.
in and out, and we would just say, here's a box over here. You can go to that box.
Right, and you would know the cost ahead of time.
And
You all would know the cost ahead
We
of
would know
time.
the cost, and you gotta do everything that box says.
If you don't do that, then it ends up not being covered.
And
which is
that
very
box would
scary
be
for a person.
responsible, not Amy, for making
She would
sure.
send them there, and they would manage that program. I can always ask them if they would be willing to do a direct contracting just on that one program. They have other programs too, like joint replacements and things like that. I know there's also the political, Vanderbilt is Nashville. They don't manage your local hospital, and so sometimes political figures don't like to send people outside the county or outside of the city. I just work with public entities, so I know what I've heard before. So you would be,
They're gonna be more unhappy to cut a benefit than to send them to Nashville.
there you go. Well, and I can ask and just see what they say and get a cost from Vanderbilt.
It's a good idea.
I mean, because this is something they do. They have a whole clinic. They have the psychiatric side of it. They've got all the things. We can just see. You don't know the cost yet.
If something goes wrong, who's responsible?
Yeah, well, you're getting in the referral business now, and
Are we responsible if it goes
From a
wrong?
legal
No, we're not
standpoint.
referring to a doctor, we're referring to a place that provides the procedure
Right.
or the
I
treatment.
understand that, but you've painted them into a box and their coverage.
Yeah.
They may not
And,
be
and
covered.
then you're getting in the business of working their
So
insurance.
direct contracting is very regular in the business now. This is not abnormal by any means. People do it with TOA, Vanderbilt,
I
other
don't
folks,
feel
so.
uncomfortable with it, but
I was just gonna say, you're already locking your employees in because you follow
You have a
Blue
network.
Cross's network. There are certain places they can't go to get
Yeah, that's where
coverage.
they're
because
outside.
they
No,
don't
I
have
understand that,
contract
but this is a
services.
very limited,
Right.
tunnel. I mean, we're really getting hyper-focused on where they're gonna go and how they're gonna do it. And I think, and this isn't a legal issue, but how many people are applying for this? Is it worth to continue the process? Because you're gonna keep running into these issues here,
That's rarely done.
because this is a carve-out.
The question is, most of our carve-outs are usually done through one-to-one. They're doing the very beginning part, if you've noticed this. Solution maybe to ask them if they can complete and how much it would cost to be procedure, because their doctor runs what you guys, you got a doctor that runs, he'd have a better idea than this committee of what is entailed in a gastric bypass.
We did ask him to look at the current guidelines
Right.
to make sure they make sense with current up-to-date guidelines. And the only two changes he recommended was to make the psychological evaluation and the exercise physiologist visits encouraged but not required, because in most bariatric surgeon policies, those things are optional now versus required.
My question is, could we go all the way through one-to-one for the whole process, get it on that, maybe the easiest way?
Yeah, I mean, it would be
All the
similar
way
to
through
what Brittany
surgery.
said, we would be partnering with some.
But you guys would be doing the partnering, would take out the referral question for us, because we hire you guys, and that may be the solution too.
So essentially what you're saying, if you do that, all we're saying is we're gonna cover 18,000 or less, period.
Well, we're gonna
We'll
find
get
out,
a
we'll
price.
find out what does
Price.
it cost for them to go through the wellness that they're already doing, which is
Right.
part of the 18, what does it cost them to get the procedure done and lock it in, based on their policies and forms. If they come back and say it's $16,000, then you kill the whole thing and say, if you wanna do it as a employee only, you go the one-to-one and you follow it based on their guidelines that's provided.
So we need to
And then they bill
table,
us for the 16.
table this until they get all that.
yes, Mr. Shoup just has something to
I
add.
think that's a good
But I
idea.
like it, I like
I
it.
think that's a good idea, but we don't need to lose the qualification of 5 years. Because if just anybody can get in it, you're gonna have people coming here to go to work just to
Right.
get that done.
I mean, keep the five, all the
I think it would
requirements.
for
Let
sure have
them
to be
handle
a
it.
partnership, right? Like, we're not gonna know that HR piece, so you guys would have to
Right.
sign off on that part, and then we would sign off on the medical
Right.
aspect of it.
We'd sign off, they've been here for 5 years, been under the insurance for 5 years. You'd sign off, they followed all the wellness,
Right.
have the forms to tell them what's covered, and have it contracted with a third party if it's economically feasible. I don't know right now. There may be a better fit, it's just saying contract on with one provider. Get the whole thing together.
I'm in favor of leaving this on old business and hearing back from the one-to-one consultants. Good? Anybody else have anything to say about it?
Madam Chairman, 'cause
Yes, sir.
it's been about 2 hours, and
Yes,
item
sir.
D is insurance rates, and they're a little more complex. Do you want to take a small break?
Yes, sir. I'll call for a recess, huh? Oh, can we make it a quick break? We have, well, just, let's take a 5-minute break. No, we're good, thank you. So everybody, a 5-minute break?
Well, I know your grandfather.
Okay, 5-minute recess is over. We call back into session. Mr. Long has promised to talk quickly, so,
You've got a packet that looks like this. It's yellow and blue. And on the front of it, there should be either one or two of them, one for AJI. It's the thicker of the two packets.
okay, no, I
Did
got
they have the
it.
thicker one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What I'm recommending this year is a 5% premium increase, and if anybody wants to know, I can kind of go through the history of your premium increases. You've had rather mild ones, kind of read them off to you. Last year was 5, this year I'm recommending 5, the year before was 1, the year before that was 8, 7, 0, 5, 0, 0, 0, 0, 7, 10, and 5. So looking at this, this is what I estimate your plan would look like with a 5% increase. You're going to have an estimated decrease in your reserve with that of about $600,000, but the Blue Cross Blue Shield actuarials are very conservative, so I dare say you'll probably break even or come positive. Plus, you've got a really strong increase. The reason I say that, if you go back 4 pages and it looks like this, something I mentioned earlier, and I'll kind of go through it quickly. Okay, the first one there, that is your preferred plan. And you start comparing those rate increases, which most of this is driven by the Blue Cross Blue Shield claims. You know, your clinic or your administrative fees, very small, it's all claims driven. If you look at this right here, going left to right, 4%, 4%, 3% is what those increases would be, okay? Flip back the next page, okay?
Am I on the right?
Yes, ma'am, that's the first one. Looks like this. It's about 3 pages back. You're on the
in
small
the wrong
packet.
packet,
You're on the small packet, but I'm going over to the other side.
The thick
That one, yeah.
This is the thick one, I've got the
Yeah.
thick one. Okay.
There you go. That was the first one, was your preferred, 4%, 4%, 3%, which would lead you to believe to a 5% increase. But your issue being is, that's why I was talking about the smoking and other premiums, this is your non-preferred plan. The recommended on that is, based on this year to last year, 122%, 122%, 120%.
I'm trying to get there. but
That's the
I
next
haven't.
page right behind that one you got. The very next page.
And I appreciate you're so familiar with this, and pardon us if we're trying to.
So I'm trying to go really fast,
I
and
know
I'm
you
sorry
are.
to get you through.
All right.
Otherwise, I'd go a lot slower, but.
All right,
but that's
carry
a
on.
need
I
to do.
understand.
So that's why I'm recommending 5%, because of your smaller group, which is your non-preferred, has a large increase. That's why I'm mentioning the smoking premiums, anything you can do for wellness. That's why I had them mention the possible weight loss, but don't know, the cost is kind of high. That's why I mentioned some of those wellness programs. Because what Bob had us, been on a wellness program for years, what he keeps pointing out is the wellness program looks like it works. This is a prime example of it. All your people doing the wellness program are on your preferred plan. 3, 4%, the non-preferred, 122, 122, 20% increases.
Is this per year for the individual? Okay.
And that is a cheaper plan because of that, but it's coming up to approach your better coverage plan. And that's the first part is health. Going on your next one is your dental, it's the next page back. What I'm recommending on that is a 0% increase. And the reason I'm recommending that is the Blue Cross Blue Shield actuarial came back with a very small increase. But several years back, we had an inordinately large year and increased the premiums, and it's been overfunded slightly for several years. So I'm recommending to keep the rates exactly the same. So that's my recommendation, and by looking at what I think will keep the plans in good shape and viable,
Okay.
barring nothing unforeseen happens. And that's the first item, which would require a vote one way or the other.
Pretty good.
That would be item D.
And I know that we've talked about vision and we have Gallagher right now and we're gonna look at moving, and we took care of the vision.
It's included in those
In
totals.
this-
Your
okay.
health insurance includes vision. It's a separate plan, but we include it as part of your health.
Okay, thank
So
you.
it's added into those premiums and everything. We just need Brittany to help us with things like rewriting the plan and stuff that takes a lot of staff hours that we don't have for us to get up and going, and she's already done it before, so better to outsource it.
All right. I make a motion to accept the recommendation of the finance director. Have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Next year, yes, next year, right? We're talking.
Starting July 1.
Starting July 1. So I have a motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
The next one
Premiums
is your
increase.
small packet, I'm sorry. Next one's item E, and it is your small packet, and that is your on-the-job injury and liability. What's through here is your claims and salaries and a few items. Your reinsurance flows directly through the funds, and we don't know what those are. Those will be bid out in May and will be passed directly to the general fund and the highway, so we'll have to make estimates and budget for it, but it doesn't flow through this fund. So this is the portion where the actual claims is paid only. Kim will send bills to the general fund and highway for the reinsurance. But looking at it, my best estimate is we need a 5% increase, and then I can kind of go over your increases on this fund because they've been fairly reasonable. This year I'm recommending 5, 25 I recommended 0, 24 0, 23 3, 22 3, 21 5, 20 15, 19 10, 18 15, 17 5, and 16 30. Back here is your estimated budget amount and actual estimated projections. With the 5%, I'm estimating a very small increase. And we're estimating, the reserve somewhere around between $5 and $6 million. Not horrible, but definitely not a strong reserve for a liability / OJI fund. Not strong, but not terrible.
So move.
I make a recommendation, we accept the 5% increase.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And I would just like to come by sometime and understand the background to all the expenses, but that's a different section.
That's the end of those items. That's the CIA contract.
All right, so we took care of E, the OJI, and the liability fund rates. And
Yes, ma'am.
item F?
Item F is the CIA contract. That's the one that was discussed the other month, and I think Legal's made a request. You discussed doing the RFQ request for RFP through finance with working with Bob, Brittany, and Bob. Jeremy. I could got Bob in my mind again. Jeremy on that project, but Legal made a request if you're officially not using CIA as a consultant that they're requesting an official vote. I'm not disagreeing with.
All right, so we had a meeting and we discussed this for a while. So legal would like a motion. It's hard to do a backwards action. I'll make a motion that going forward, we use ESP to, as our consultant for our property bidding. Is that the insurance bidding? I just want to get all the pieces in there.
The reinsurances.
And to not renew CIA agreement for services.
To not renew the agreement with CIA.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The next item on the agenda is October, January occupational injury payments.
Would you like to join the board?
That's all right.
KP's.
Come on in. That's all right.
So cute.
He wanted to join in.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, he said. That was funny.
We're just looking at the payments for a moment to see if we have any additional questions.
What is Corvell?
They are our bill review company.
That's what you paid them to review a bill?
Yes.
$13,000?
Well, it was a surgery bill, more than likely. I don't know which one specifically.
Oh, is the bill, that's the price of the
We pay them
surgery?
monthly. Yeah, that's
Oh,
the first.
yeah.
I think it's $1,000 a month in it.
No, that's for something else.
Okay. I'm thinking of what they were.
No, we pay them individually, they get a certain percent of our savings. When they process the bill, we pay the bill to the facility, and then they get a certain percent of that. Savings.
In the past, we had discussed maybe coding out to see if there was any risk management we could do with these injuries. If I was to make up something, if a lot of these injuries were because people were slipping and falling in the hallway because there was water, then if we were to track it, we would see that that's our problem. I think that in the past, we had discussed some type of coding or tracking to see if there's any common thread that we could manage the risk. Am I imagining that, or does anybody else, do we have anything in that way? Have we made any progress in trying to determine if we have anything we could manage here? Such as, and more practical, I assume we have back injuries from our EMS staff at times.
Occasionally, yeah.
And if we found that we were having a large number of that, then we would do more training on how to properly lift.
Yeah.
But we're not managing or tracking.
We buy the electric
Yes.
cots for that. That's what helps all those electric cots.
So bad example for me.
No, I'm just saying that is one of the reasons we buy those expensive cots,
Cots.
because all those
I do
injuries.
track them, and I do monitor them. We talk about it occasionally. We don't really have anything specific that we're continually doing. It's not, we don't really have anything that's continuous as far as slips and falls.
So like I have a lot of, and I'm not just gonna pick on the sheriff's deputies, it's just they're on here a lot. So I don't know, like when I look at this, I don't know, are they on here all the time? And I don't think this is a thing, I'm making it up. Are they on here all the time because there's a dog biting them? Are they on here
No.
because, is there any way we can code and see why they're here so that this board can?
Yeah, I have a report I can run that will show that, what the body part injuries are that are consistent. But we really don't have a consistent reason, except for corrections officers getting in fights with inmates. I don't know how we can control that.
I don't know,
But
but we
that's-
could ask the sheriff if he could.
Right. But those are a lot of the corrections officers that are on there because of fights with inmates or running up the steps
Yeah.
and falling when they're going to a call. Or
That would be great if you could show us that report.
I'll run a report. How many years do you want me to go back?
5,
Okay.
everybody good with that topic?
Just one question. Here where they don't have anything being paid out,
Oh, that's a
are they just required to stay on there?
That's a different report.
Okay.
That's a vehicle accident report that I was asked to
Mm-hmm.
bring in.
So, we asked for the vehicle report because at this table, it was discussed that there were a lot of accidents.
And you wanted me to go back 2 years, and those are the 2 years broken down by department of vehicle accidents that were reported to risk management. Did we finish up with the injuries?
I think,
The payments?
yes, I think we're gonna, look forward to a future additional report. So on the 2 years report, this vehicle report, it looks like everything is 2023. I may be missing a page.
That, yeah, one of the pages is missing.
This is the even pages.
Of the whole thing? Oh, I
The
thought it
whole
was,
thing?
I thought it was just the, that's
It
where
was
we're all.
duplex.
I thought it was just the plan. Commissioner Brown has pointed out to me that the reason we've had such confusion is every other page is missing in our whole packet.
Our even pages.
I thought he was just talking about the OJI
What?
plan, and I was gonna
All
give
the
him
even
a
pages are
complete
missing.
plan.
See, it goes 4, 5, 3, 5, 7,
It's all
9,
odd.
11.
We don't have
How
the,
did that even happen?
One
You're
side
human.
not printed.
You're
Yeah.
human.
One side didn't print, that would be my fault.
You're human, honey.
I don't know
yes,
about that.
Um,
I'll have to ask mine.
Oh.
and as far as like on the vehicle report, as Commissioner Brown was pointing out, so the part that there's no amount paid, that's because we fixed the vehicle in-house,
Yes, and I don't get a cost of what they pay.
but there is a cost.
There is a cost.
I mean, we buy parts and we do all that.
department pays
Yeah,
for it.
but that department pays for the repairs.
But I would think that in risk management, we would be, even though it's an internal cost, we'd be tracking, because all of these could be, I mean, I'm just, again, just throwing out numbers, but let's just say that if each one of these cost us $4,000 in parts and labor, it could be $6,000.
Could be.
There's no way of knowing that without tracking what the internal cost is. I know that sounds like a lot of work, and a lot of tracking, but it feels like that would be the only way we know what the cost, and if we need to bring in, more risk management and training and stuff.
I think that's an issue, if I may, that's gonna fall on the departments, because some of this stuff we're not gonna know about till after the fact. And if we're gonna create some sort of reporting mechanism, we can't go out there and grab the information, they're gonna have to submit it to,
You've asked me
risk
what I think,
management.
yeah, you've asked me what I think we could do in risk management. I think asking the departments would be the
Mhm.
first step
Yeah,
to building this.
okay.
And then I assume in finance, what would they do? Would they, like, I blow up my fender, I'm gonna have to order a new fender, it just comes through my budget and it's not coded.
If they get an insurance recovery, it goes through the commission all the way
But
through.
this is not,
A lot of times it's below the claims threshold too. What's our?
well, we don't wanna claim it, we just wanna know how much it's
We don't
costing
have
us.
insurance.
Yeah, we're
We don't
I know,
have-
but itself, what's our amount we don't pay below $6,000? We don't, I thought we did.
On our stuff.
Yeah.
Can we?
But not on others.
Oh, you were talking.
Yeah, say on the counties, we've got like, they don't cover to a certain dollar, so we don't see a lot of that.
Well, no, they're fixing it in-house though. Are they not, like, if they fix their bumper, they're gonna
It
have
just
to
comes
order a
through
new
their budget.
bumper.
And a
That's
lot-
come through the
a lot of
budget.
Can we code it in any way? I
It's
know
a
you love
line they've
doing
got
that.
already.
It's the
like the
regular
sheriff's
line, just
department.
parts.
So there's no way to track
I mean.
damage.
I know the sheriff's office tracks it. I know they track how much they pay, because a previous maintenance shop director, he would send me a report occasionally.
Because
But
the
I don't
only way
get
to
that
see
anymore.
if we
It's
could
gone.
manage this risk
Monty Green.
is by capturing what
I
we're
don't know if
paying
you
for
guys
it.
or not.
See what you can do.
I'll see what I can find out.
If it's internal, they would fix it themselves through the
But a lot of
parts.
times they.
I know, but that's still a cost to the county.
Yeah.
And we need to manage risk and manage the cost, even if we don't see it because it's moving through in the budget. Any other vehicle questions on that? And then, Ms. White has brought us, the property, she's been working on the deeds information, just to bring to your attention that we're working on trying to determine that the county owns buildings. I think it came up when the volunteer fire department in one location started questioning who owned the building. I forget which one it was, and it was, I don't wanna address that one, but
Yeah, it was the, yeah, the Oak Grove.
I thought it was high.
Well, there was 2 or 3 different ones.
So we're just trying to determine which properties we actually own opposed to which departments maybe back in 1950, the highway department owned and gave away, or the school. And, Risk is working on
That is a
identifying the
list.
deed information.
That is a list of all the properties that's owned by Sumner County. Pieces of property, buildings, whatever.
Thank
And it
you,
was combined, I combined 3 different lists.
thank you.
So we're still working on getting the deed book information, but we don't have all of that included on there. But some of those properties may be, some of those pieces of properties may be owned by Board of Education, we found out, but they're still listed on the counties, under the county, under Sumner County. So
Did you receive our new list that we're working on? Have
Yes,
you-
I gave Jeremy a copy.
He's got the copy.
But that's not, yeah, I combined it with your list.
I think my list is one of the lists you used to make
Yeah.
that.
To make that, so you're in on this. And then, the only other item I have on here with insurance bidding coming up, and I know we're trying to get Bob out of here, the contents. I just wanted to speak to that. Has finance or risk reached out to the departments to get an idea if they know what their contents list even is?
I send each department a copy of their
Every year.
list from the previous year, and they're supposed to update it.
Could you ask them to really take a look at it?
I
This
will.
building here, the Belvedere, that's full of all kinds of complicated stuff and computers up on the 3rd floor, has the same content value as the Gallatin Library, pretty much. And I have a hard time thinking about that it's, I mean, their books are valuable, but I know those servers upstairs and all this computer equipment and all this furniture and everything, we have to have a more costly building here, I would think. Does anybody disagree that this building must cost more?
Oh, yeah.
So ask them not only to review it, but to send it back signed that they're verified it, if you could.
Okay.
Thank you. That's the end of my questions.
Can
on
I
this.
ask a question since we're on this topic? And I'm hoping Mr. Hyde might be able to give me some assistance. As I was going through the list of property owned by the county, I came across, I wanna say it was a 100-acre piece of property, and I could not figure out why it was a zero Highway 31 property. That tells me it's undeveloped property. So it turns out it's the 100 acres that Vol State sits on. And we're still listed as the owner of that property, which brings up the question of liability concerns, other issues such as that. I'm looking for some guidance on this, where to look if we transferred or attempted to transfer, what the intent was. So if anybody on this committee can.
I would just imagine that was an enticement by the county buying that to place a cottage there, but,
We may want to entertain kicking the property over, and this obviously I don't need a
Which
decision now.
item on here?
What line item?
It's number 3 on the list.
Number 3?
At the top.
I'll be right here.
It's either done.
While we're on these items, and I'd like to, if you could research that more.
No, I know
Oh, you're
we
done
own it.
research, do they know we own it?
I'm not gonna go poking the bear if I don't know what reaction I'm gonna get on the front
We
end.
may need some new buildings.
Hey, we might have a lot more assets.
Our
than we
space
know.
issue's gone.
But from a liability standpoint, if there's an injury,
I know.
they're gonna go for the deepest pockets.
100 acres or 200,000?
The other thing is,
What's all that ridiculous?
the other item is the first item. I know that the airport is a component unit of us. Do we make sure that our component units are adequately insured?
There's separate standalone entities, so we really wouldn't be involved in that.
Well, they
But they're
are
legal
kinda
entities.
kinda under us.
Well, they're legal entities.
And we do have the,
Separately governed.
same argument as with Vol State, we're the property owners of that property, same argument.
Well, we got a liability risk.
Same argument.
If somebody figures it out.
And we don't list anything from the airport any longer. We used to have a couple of hangars over there that we had on our policy,
Yeah.
but we no longer have those on the
Okay,
policy.
I would just say it's the same argument as with Ball State. If our name, it's right here on the top item,
Yeah.
Airport Authority. We're the owners of it.
Of the building,
I don't know.
That 188 acres.
Which is the runway and
Here's the deed
everything?
information.
Yeah.
What we needed,
Yeah.
you just check it out.
They have.
Maybe for
Right,
a
but I
trade
mean,
for a lease
we're
and some
still
other property.
listed as the owner of the property.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say
That's
here,
what
Mr. Loin.
The deed said.
Yes.
There was a
Or-
change at one point.
Just a question, because I'm not qualified to answer this. If that is situation at both those locations, the airport and the college, can the county not lease that land to them and require them to carry coverage on it as the lease or?
That is one option, or if we've already got a campus on there, quit claim the deed to them and just walk out from under it.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe there was a reason they didn't.
But before I start entertaining that, I wanted to see if somebody knew something I was missing. Otherwise, I'll have to reach out to Ball State, see what they've got document-wise, and now the airport authority's a different ballgame because we've got FAA requirements and things of that nature. So we're dealing with some federal rules that are gonna come into play there, so it's different.
I look forward to your research.
Yeah, I'm on it.
Thank you.
You know, check out the deed information there and see what it says.
It'll just be, I will, and that's what I've done with the Ball State one, but they're just general conveyance language, which is grantor, grantee, it's yours now.
That's, so we sold it to them?
No,
No, we
own it.
didn't, that's the problem.
We did.
We did it and
We're
deed it
still
to
listed
them.
as owner on the register's index.
There, we have the deed. All right, so,
I'll have to get with them on
I believe this will just roll to old business and we can carry on this discussion.
that. Okay,
That brings us to the end of our list and,
yeah.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
Third, fourth. All in favor and have a good day. Aye.
I'll pay for you.